live on the BR 2026 NHL Draft Watch Along Party. Welcome in. My name is Ryan Sura alongside Jack Larmer. We're going to be here with you for the first 16 picks of the 2026 NHL Draft. Jack, how you feeling kind of going into this draft so far? Obviously, a lot of speculation over the last week or so, just with how much movement there's been so far.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. There's nothing more but excitement coming into this. I think more so than we felt over the years coming into the draft. There's been more movement. There's more speculation on trades. It feels like there's loads of players that are available. Trades are coming out of nowhere. They're flying open. A lot of uncertainty almost after pick number 2, it feels like. It's draft day. There's not a whole lot better day in the offseason for hockey.
Yeah, totally. And this one seems like it's going to be a really exciting one. We are live on the BR Open Ice YouTube and in the Bleacher Report app. So let us know how you're feeling in the chat. We're going to be interacting with you guys throughout the show as much as we can. Also, we're going to be grading every pick. So that'll allow you guys to really interact with us. Let us know if our grade for the pick was good. Let us know if it's bad. If you disagree, obviously love to talk and interact with everyone in the chat today. Get everyone's opinion flowing. Let's take a look at the BR big board to see which NHL draft prospects we're going to be coming off the board maybe a little bit earlier than most, and then some maybe a little bit later on in the evening and into the second round. So looking at this top 10 board that we have here, Jack, who's someone that kind of stands out to you that you think is going to maybe jump ahead of what the general or maybe mock drafts you've seen, general projection that you've seen for some of these players?
I think the only answer is Viggo Bjork. I mean, you look at him all the way back kind of their U17, U16, U18 days. He was neck and neck with McKenna the whole way. Obviously, now we've seen guys even in his own country like Stenberg jump up. We've seen other centermen like Gamal Holtra, like Tynan Lawrence kind of jump instead of him. I think a lot of teams like him. When you look between picks 4, 5, and 6 now, it's going to be the Sabres, the Rangers, and the Calgary Flames. Center is kind of something they need. Their prospect pool isn't full of it. He's a guy who I think teams are either really high on or really low on. There isn't really any in between. I know a lot of people like him at 6 to the Flames. It makes a lot of sense. There is kind of incoming information with Carson Karls, knowing that he's a Western boy who wants to step up. But at the end of the day, I think Viggo Bjork is a perfect young centerman to fill up your prospect pool with. The points are there. He's played in the SHL. He was really good coming down that stretch for Sweden in the World Championships. We know he had a good World Juniors. Obviously, Sweden ended up on top, winning the gold medal. This is a guy who poses a ton of creativity. His puck skills and puck knowledge is above and beyond a lot of the players in this class. I think his game translates really, really well to the NHL, but the longing issue for him has always been his size. We know there are a lot of teams that kind of veer away from that. Not really sure why at this point. When you look at guys like Seth Jarvis and Logan Stankoven and now Jackson Blake as well, who have won the Stanley Cup, being smaller size player, I think Viggo Bjork's a perfect center to add to your prospect pool.
Yeah, I think he's a really interesting case, especially looking at where he is compared to Stenberg. I think some people over the last 3 to 4 months could even compare him close to him. They've played alongside each other at the World Juniors. They played alongside each other at the World Championships with Lucas Raymond as well. I think these two guys are unbelievable talents and will help in their own way. But you obviously have the 1 and 2 split between Gavin McKenna and Ivar Stenberg. It seems like Gavin McKenna is going to be the first overall pick tonight. He's the consensus number 1 overall rated prospect. I would say at this point, I know a lot of scouts have him 1A and 1B with Stenberg, depending on kind of what you're looking for. But it seems like Gavin McKenna is going to be coming into a pretty good situation here with the Toronto Maple Leafs, considering how many awesome offensive talents they have with Austin Matthews, William Nylander. I think you could still even put John Tavares in that list as well. So what are the Leafs getting if they do? I mean, there's still craziness that could happen, obviously. But if they do get Gavin McKenna, what are they getting in a player like him?
I think when you want to talk in terms of pure puck skills and talent ability, McKenna maybe tops the list out of any first overall pick we've seen in the past 5 years or so. I think Leafs fans are going to have to kind of live with some mistakes through the neutral zone. They're going to have to live with some defensive lapses like you do with often many 18-year-olds who instantly step into the league. But more so than ever, they are getting a top talent. When you look at the kind of plays he creates, whether it's through the neutral zone, on the power play, in the offensive zone, it's directly in line with a guy like Patrick Kane, with a guy like Nikita Kucherov. The skill is off the charts. There's not a better offensive player who can craft the puck like Gavin McKenna can.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting too, I think a lot of people are seeing this void being filled as like a replacement for Mitch Marner in his sense of his playmaking ability. I think one thing to note that's really important in terms of his defensive play, I don't think McKenna really touched much of the ice on the penalty kill for Penn State in the NCAA, and I can't imagine he did for Medicine Hat. Meanwhile, Mitch Marner was playing in the penalty kill when he was playing in the OHL and had a little bit more of a defensive game with him. But I think all the things you kind of mentioned, the attributes that he has going into a Toronto Maple Leafs team that wasn't necessarily supposed to get that first overall pick, right? So I think this is obviously one of the better spots that a first overall pick could be landing when you're looking at the last maybe 5 or 6. And looking at the last 5 first overall picks, obviously we have Matthew Schaefer last year, who's at the draft tonight in Buffalo. You have Celebrini, Connor Bedard, Juraj Slafkovsky, and Owen Power. Where would you put Gavin McKenna amongst that list of these 5 guys?
I mean, it is incredibly hard. I think right now, and I don't think this needs to be taken as a slight towards McKenna, I'd kind of slide him under Slafkovsky there and then go down the list. So I guess number 5, including him, I think he's better than Power. I would probably go something like Celebrini, Bedard, Schaefer, Slafkovsky, then McKenna. I think Slafkovsky has kind of made it known he is a true number 1 pick. I know if you look at that draft class, there's some fact on it. I think 10 out of the top 15 picks have been traded or something. Everybody outside of McKenna and Wright, maybe it is, who obviously may be on the move as well. But I think with what Celebrini and Schaefer have kind of proved themselves, basically being Canadian Olympic talent. I know Schaefer wasn't there, but he's knocking on the door. And then Connor Bedard's right there as well. I think I would put McKenna at number 5. And that's not a slight to him. Like, these guys have stepped into the league and become instant superstars and instant number 1 options for their team. McKenna's in an interesting situation, obviously, with guys like Nylander and Matthews there. But I think that should only help him.
Yeah, totally. And I think also you could put Gavin McKenna in the same light as he's been in the spotlight for how long? Like the same kind of thing as Connor Bedard and a Macklin Celebrini kind of player. Even Matthew Schaefer in a little bit of a sense, but I think Gavin McKenna even more. Like, I think people were projecting him a first overall pick when he was like 13. Like that's a lot of pressure to come with it. And I think also another interesting fact that you go along with Gavin McKenna, his transition over the NCAA last season. And now he's joining a pretty impressive list of being the 3rd player in a 5-year span to be drafted first overall out of the NCAA. Now, how important do you think that's going to be for his transition into the NHL, considering I think at this point, playing in the WHL and playing for Medicine Hat, sure, you can put up a ton of points, but the compete level and the different style of hockey, I think in the NCAA now prepares players better in the NHL.
Yeah, and I think if you even want to go past whether it's the talent or the size, the age gap in between these players, I think the lifestyle plays a big part in too. Like, we're not driving from Medicine Hat to Prince Albert on a Tuesday night, swinging through Vancouver and Victoria. Like, it is completely different. I mean, these guys flying first class from Pittsburgh, or not Pittsburgh, but Pennsylvania to Michigan or wherever for these games. Getting used to that lifestyle is something I think that takes kind of a lot of young players by storm. It's a huge step. It's a huge growth for them. McKenna's going to get used to that right away. He understands what life is that. And it's something that we as hockey fans are just going to have to get used to. First overall picks, if they're going to be North American players, are going to come from college now. You look at Landon Dupont for next year. You can go down the list of other guys. It's something that's going to happen from now on out, and I think it's going to play a huge factor into the growth of these guys stepping in as 18-year-olds and being instantly successful in the league.
Yeah, and I think it's also an interesting point to bring up. Like, Keaton Verhoff's a guy, like, I remember when we were watching the World Juniors, Keaton Verhoff was probably the first overall pick at that point. Maybe like Stenberg, a little bit of conversation after the World Juniors. Maybe Stenberg was jumping McKenna a little bit. And then you see how McKenna's obviously second half of his NCAA season was a lot better. And you saw Verhoff kind of slope off a little bit. And now there's other defensemen that I think are very clear in a way going to go earlier than him in this top 10 draft. A lot of movement, as we talked about in this draft so far. There's been, I think for me personally, the most trades I've seen leading up to an NHL draft. And I don't know how long. Like, most of the time, I feel like we see these trades happen maybe of draft night or when the draft is happening. But I mean, you could go down, there's a laundry list of trades looking at over the past week. I mean, you could start A to Z with the Buffalo 4th overall pick or trading Chicago's 4th overall pick to Buffalo for Bowen Byram. Absolutely insane. Like, the price of some of these players, I think, has also shocked these guys. But I think the biggest trade, and the thing that was kind of the domino for all these other trades to happen for the most part, was that Brady Tkachuk and that Matthew Tkachuk trade, or Brady Tkachuk trade, joining forces with his brother Matthew Tkachuk in Florida over from Ottawa. Was it 3 first-round picks and a third round pick, I believe, or second round pick. Absolutely insane. What do you think this impact is going to have on the Florida Panthers? Obviously, from a PR standpoint, this is great for Florida, but I think it also brings just the exact level of style that the Florida Panthers are trying to kind of make up here. A really tough physical team with also these power forwards that have a lot of skill.
Yeah, it is interesting going forward for Florida. Like, they obviously, when you kind of add these two guys with the already kind of power, dirty but strong skill set players like the Sam Bennett's of the world, they just added Garnet Hathaway as well. It's huge for teams to kind of adjust to it. And like you said earlier with the domino effect, it really does play into the second one team makes a trade, every other team follows suit. Teams are now going to force themselves. They have to be harder to play against. They have to be stronger physically, but they have to still be able to put the puck in the net. And that's something you're going to see teams start to make the adjustments over. I'm sure July 1st is going to be a very quiet day, but there's going to be moments in certain players where teams feel like we're going to get this guy in order to play against Florida. And that's something that teams are just going to have to live with now. Florida's going to continue to be a tough team to play against. I think Ottawa kind of made the right deal. Like, you can only really get so much when a player says, hey, like, I'm going to this one guy, I'm going to this one spot. So nonetheless, it's a great spot for Ottawa, and Florida's definitely the team to beat next year.
Yeah. Breaking news. We have a trade that has come in during, or I guess a couple minutes before the first pick happens. We were kind of talking about this before, but we didn't have the first source or what was coming back in return. The Utah Mammoth trading JJ Peterka to the Boston Bruins. And Utah is giving multiple first round picks or getting multiple first round picks in return for JJ Peterka. We were looking at this. Boston has a first round pick at the end of the first round this year, 23, I believe it is. But I wonder where those other picks are going to be coming from. I'm assuming they're going to be next year and the years after. But it seems like the Bruins are almost employing like a Toronto Maple Leafs kind of style here, with giving away all their picks, going in for it for the next 1 to 2 years, and then kind of seeing what happens then.
Yeah, I do like the move because I think you have to build everything off of Pasternak's timeline. Obviously, not kind of getting Marchand back, having to move off him sucked. Obviously, Bergeron retired, Chara, that kind of era moved on from Boston. They surprised a lot of teams last year. Obviously, trading Brandon Carlo for Fraser Minten turned out to be a great deal. He's been a great addition. Huzininoff has been, I'm definitely butchered his name, but Huzininoff has been excellent. Now you're going to add a guy like Peterka. The scoring is only getting better. I would imagine if it's pick 23 or 24, whatever they are this year, and then probably Florida's pick that they got for Marchand next year, probably guessing that's going to be 26 or 28 on, considering Florida's obviously the team to beat now. Peterka's made a lot of noise. Obviously, he finished that last year really good in Buffalo, goes over to Utah. It's kind of sketchy. Some guys don't like the way he plays. Very offensive style, not really defensive zone, kind of crisis type of player. But nonetheless, they're getting a high skill player and, another German to add to the roster with coach. So it's an interesting play. I do like it for Boston. They're getting some good talent.
Yeah, and Chris Yashemsky in the chat has mentioned that Kevin Adams might be joining the Boston Bruins front office, which obviously could make this decision a little bit easier. Kevin Adams would have been the one to kind of move him to Utah, but obviously would have seen something that to want to bring him back if his role with the Bruins is with the front office and in that GM spot. So yeah, I've heard similar things about JJ Peterka being a little bit of a I wouldn't say go as far as saying nightmare in the locker room, but maybe not the easiest player to play with, as you kind of mentioned. I mean, being traded twice in the span of a year when you're a player who's making a sizable amount of money on his contract and considered a very good top six winger, obviously a little bit concerning. So we now have the start of the 2026 NHL draft with the Toronto Maple Leafs on the clock. I can't imagine it's going to take them very long. They probably will wait a little bit longer to kind of string us along. But is there any inclination in your mind that they're not going to take Gavin McKenna at this point? And if it's not Gavin McKenna, is it Stenberg or is it Malhotra? Is it Reed?
If it's not McKenna, it better be Stenberg. And if it's not McKenna, like, Shaka might be fired tomorrow. It might be the shortest GM tenure ever. Like, his comments the other day on kind of saying we have a consensus pick and we know who the pick is. Like, if it's not McKenna, he's just stirring the pot for just a boatload of media trouble in Toronto. So it's Gavin McKenna far and few, like no questions asked. And Toronto's got to be excited for the player they're getting.
Yeah, I would say the same thing as well. I think Gavin McKenna is going to be, as we kind of talked about at the beginning, like just a perfect fit into this Toronto Maple Leafs team at this point. And not to say Stenberg wouldn't be. Like I've heard scouts compare and contrast these two in terms of Stenberg being a guy who's like a death by 1,000 cuts, and then Gavin McKenna a little bit more skill upside, who can maybe create a little bit more. But Stenberg is relentless and he won't stop, and he'll find his way to score or, create a play that will get him there. So I think the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to be in a pretty good spot after this pick kind of comes in. I think after this pick, we're going to see kind of what unfolds at number 2. And then at 3, I think that's where we're going to see the most kind of, I think not confusion, but I think it's where everyone kind of is waiting for Vancouver to be like, are you going to go the Caleb Malhotra route? Because 4 now with Buffalo, after we talked about the masterclass of Jarmo Kekalainen and what he's done with the Buffalo Sabres since joining them, and getting that 4th overall pick for Bowen Byram, and also a 45th overall pick, and then moving that 45th overall pick for Olen Zellweger, just a few hours ago, to kind of replace Bowen Byram and then be able to go back and still have that 4th overall pick and kind of pick with maybe more of a clear mind, you can kind of say.
Yeah, like going back to McKenna, it's perfect. It is a perfect storm. Like low cap hit, obviously being on an ELC, and he's going to enter a lineup that is ready for him and ready to go. Which is at the end of the day exactly what Toronto needs, right? Like you can't imagine Toronto's going to sit here and have a season like they did last. It was kind of a perfect storm of everything going wrong, and adding a guy of this talent and of this stature only really helps the team. And going back to Buffalo too, like you're right, like Jarmo Kekalainen has really taken the bull by its horns since taking over for Kevin Adams, and I think what makes this draft so interesting is after acquiring Zellweger, all of a sudden Buffalo may not need to draft a defenseman at 4, right? We know they're stack-loaded defensemen when you want to think of Dahlin and Samuelson, Power. Obviously, they get Louis Crevier back. They still have Connor Timmins in the lineup. Zellweger is now there. Any of these defensemen who may sit here and be ready now guys, it kind of changes. Like, can Vigo Bjork jump up to 4? I think that's an opportunity. If Malholtra's down at 4, maybe Malholtra's the guy that they grab at 4. So things really open up in this draft for Buffalo. I kind of see Malhotra sitting there at 3, which I think is good for Vancouver. After that, I think it's train off the wheels and it can go absolutely any way, which makes it for a great draft.
I totally agree. Like, I'm really excited to see how this top 10 unfolds. Like, seriously, I'm excited to see if there's going to be a trade. Jarmo Kekalainen's he's a crazy person. Like, he will trade that 4th pick as soon as he's on the clock. Like, he feels like one of those GMs that will do that. And we have a bunch of people in the chat saying that, dropping some beats. I'm assuming he's the one who's going to be announcing this pick, as we kind of, Emily Kaplan tweeted out before that there's a A-list celebrity announcing the pick. And I mean, it's either going to be Justin Bieber or Drake, I guess, for Toronto, considering the stars that we have in this city right now. But yeah, a couple minutes, I'm assuming, until we get the Gavin McKenna call here. Talking about a little bit more at 4, and obviously that maybe they don't need to take a defenseman. Radim Murtka obviously wasn't Kekalainen's draft pick, and he tried to move him at the deadline. Oh, we do have the pick is in. The pick is in for the Toronto Maple Leafs, 1st overall pick, and it is, of course, Gavin McKenna. San Jose Sharks now on the clock. To no surprise, Gavin McKenna out of Penn State, being the 1st overall pick out of the Yukon. I'd imagine he's the first ever NHL player to be drafted 1st overall at the Yukon. Don't hold me to that. I don't know that if that's for sure. But yeah, not all that is surprising to see Gavin McKenna obviously go 1st overall. How many years until the Leafs win a cup with Gavin McKenna, Jack?
Oh, I mean, the non-Toronto fan in me might sit here and want to say forever, but this guy's only going to help. Like, you don't pick up Gavin McKenna's off the street. This guy's going to be on the highlight reel all over next season. I think Toronto fans, like I said earlier, they're going to have to kind of live with some defensive lapses. We mentioned it. He's definitely not going to be on the penalty kill. Defensive zone draws, who knows? Maybe he jumps out after they win the draw, or so be it. But nonetheless, this is a guy, like, we've compared him to Patrick Kane or Nikita Kucherov. Like, it doesn't get better offensively skilled than this guy. He's not the biggest guy, but that doesn't matter. He's going to control the puck. He does use his frame a little bit to help guide defenders off. The skill is off the charts. You've seen it all day. You've seen it at Holinka. You've seen it in Medicine Hat. We've seen it at Penn State. We've seen it in the World Juniors. This guy has dominated every step of the way. No question he was going first overall. Maybe some Bettman magic in here to get the Leafs back into the playoffs next year, giving him Gavin McKenna. But nonetheless, this is unbelievable pick for Toronto, and no question that it was ever going to be anybody else.
Yeah, I think the Patrick Kane comparisons are obviously like, I think you have to earn that kind of respect, but I think he has to this point, and I think he's in a great spot again to just continue to do that, and see kind of where he goes from this point. I'm curious to see where they play him. Like, everyone obviously is going to think like, oh yeah, play him with Matthews and like Nyes maybe, but like maybe you put him on a line with like Tavares and Nylander. Like, I feel like the possibilities for that, for his options of where he's going to end up in this lineup are incredible. And I really do believe that this was the right pick. As much as Stenberg wouldn't have been a bad pick, I feel like it's obviously it's a tough spot to be in, especially with John Chayka, who's also getting so much bad press from these from some of the signings he's done early on as a GM, whether it's the coach, trading for Sam Urson, even though he just traded him away again. But yeah, I feel we had Chris Yashemsky in the chat being McKenna, Tavares, and Nylander is going to be the line for Gavin McKenna to be on. Do you agree with that? Do you think that's kind of where he's living?
I don't know. Like, I guess it makes sense considering Nyes plays on the left side as well. But I think the pretty thing about McKenna and, being a Ranger guy, you can see some similar traits with Artemi Panarin is McKenna's a left winger at the faceoff dot, and that's it. The guy's going to move around the ice all over the place. Sure, he might have that left D or right D kind of position and job assignment to cover that guy. But when this guy has the puck, the ice is his playground. Everywhere is going to go. I don't think I'd like to see him with Nylander just because I want the puck on his stick. I think his ability to set up Matthews is probably off the charts. Knives is going to play that downhill forechecking game and go grab pucks low and deep, get that puck to McKenna, and the rest is history. So personally, I think, I know it's tough. Maybe you can move Nyes over to the right side. Maybe you can move McKenna over the right side. It's tough for an 18-year-old to switch positions quick or switch sides. But personally, I would like to see him off of on the line with Matthews and Nyes. Not so much with Nylander, but if you were going by position based solely, yeah, Nylander and Tavares would make the most sense. He's got to play in the top six right away.
Yeah, he's like you said about his defensive liabilities. He's not going to be someone who's going to be playing in the bottom six. And then you also have like Easton Cowan, obviously, who's coming off like the Marlies are coming off a AHL championship. So like I think there's a little bit of, and I know they have a lot of faith in Artur Akhimov as well, the goalie who's pretty much propelled them to that point, obviously moving on from Joseph Wall. So I feel like this team is, obviously Leafs fans always think their team's in a good spot for the most part, a little bit self-deprecating out there, but I would confidently say, even though the Atlantic is going to be a hell of a battle next year, that they will be in that fight 100%. So good to see Gavin McKenna get that first overall stamp of approval, the one he's been waiting for a while. Let's grade this pick, Jack. I don't see how you don't just give it an A. Like, let's just be nice to start. Also, you're kind of a jerk if the first overall pick is going to be slated for this long. Gavin McKenna is an A. Even if Stenberg got taken here, I would give him an A as well, to be totally honest. Either of those two players that's where I draw the line.
Yeah, 100% agree. Like, when a guy like this falls into your lap, you have no choice but to pick him. There's not too much scouting to be done. There's not too much kind of going off the charts, maybe writing your own direction, your own path. You take the guy that's been here for 4 or 5 years now. I'm giving this pick an A as well.
Yeah, I think most people will be grading this an A, and I would love to hear chat's thoughts of like if you guys disagree, if they should have gone a completely different direction. But I am imagining that everyone is going to say that the pick for the chat's grade A. Shocker. I feel like you have to be. You really have to know something about Ivar Stenberg that the rest of the world doesn't know to really give this a bad grade and say like, no, this is not the correct pick. We're going a different direction. So, okay. Now the Sharks are on the clock at this point, have been on the clock, obviously, since McKenna got picked. They had an interesting week trading, obviously, William Eklund, which I think almost cemented that the Sharks were going to take Ivar Stenberg at number 2 because they are very similar players, had a similar amount of success in their 18-year in the SHL as well. I think obviously Stenberg's was maybe a little bit better in terms of points production. But I think after trading William Eklund and getting also that 9th overall pick, I think this cements them taking Stenberg and then a defenseman at 9.
Yeah, 100%. I think they kind of, I mean, maybe the only general manager that's better than Yarmo has been Mike Grier. When you really want to look into it, like there's a good chance 4 of the last 10 or 4 of the last top 10 picks are probably going to be defensemen. Maybe Viggo Bjork slides in. Ethan Belchez obviously has a chance as well to get in that top 10, but the majority is going to be defensemen. And there's a really good chance there's Daxon Rudolph or, Keaton Vierhoff, maybe even Albert Smith. I don't think so, but there's chance these guys are going to be there at number 9. So why not grab the best player available at number 2, which is Ivar Stenberg? So Grier's done an excellent job. Stenberg probably now, no questions asked, is going to be the number 2 pick. And then they're going to grab that defenseman at number 9. It makes a lot of sense. Truly just masterclass work by Grier and the Sharks staff. Not many days do you really come across this perfect flow of situation. And I think Eklund was really well liked in San Jose. It's kind of a good trade for both. He was obviously the odd guy out with Misa, Smith, Shersonov, obviously Celebrini, and now you're going to add another winger to the mix. The minutes aren't there. Ottawa obviously needs to fill this top 6 role, and Eklund can step in and play instantly on the power play in the top 6, get a lot of puck time as well. So it's a perfect storm for both teams, but really, really well managed by Grier and the Shark staff to get Stenberg here too.
Yeah, I think it was really favorable for both, and I think you could almost see this move coming from Ottawa after the Brady Tkachuk deal because you knew they weren't just going to sit on a couple first-round picks. Like they're in a position where they have a good enough team where they can move those and try to get a player that's ready right now. I think it's interesting that San Jose has necessarily like moved on from William Eklund. Like I think he's going to be a star in Ottawa, to be totally honest with you. I think there's so much opportunity for him there. I know Zetterlund was a guy who got traded over to Ottawa. I don't really would put them in the same category. I think Zetterlund had a lot more opportunity in San Jose and didn't get that same in Ottawa just because they're a lot of a deeper offensive team and in a much better position to be like succeeding at this point. So I think Eklund will have a ton of success in Ottawa. But I also, again, I agree. If the Sharks are going this young build, I mean, you're adding Stenberg potentially to a list of Celebrini, Will Smith, Sam Dickinson, like the Michael Misa. Like they have so many good young players. Like this team is going to be right where they were. I would say, I don't know. When was the last time the Sharks were? Remember that those years when they had DeBoer? Yeah, 10 years ago, pretty much, where Thornton and Patrick Marleau were absolutely running the show, and they were making it to seems like a Western Conference final every year, but losing half the time.
Yeah. I mean, and the chat said it as well. Like, obviously, they do kind of fall luck into here where they are getting kind of gifted the 2nd overall pick. I mean, they almost made a run into the playoffs there as well. So the Sharks have done nothing bad to this point. They're building a really good young core. And it only really looks like it's getting better with Stenberg and then the 9th guy as well. So it's going to be interesting for them going forward. I think the Pacific is still kind of dominated by Edmonton, by Vegas. But, San Jose is definitely next up. And I honestly, compared to maybe anybody other than Florida, I think their Stanley Cup window is probably closer than a lot of people think.
So I was going to say, do you think with this move and then whatever they do at 9, are they a playoff team next year confidently?
I mean, yeah, I'm going to say yes. I think they're better. Like, I don't know. It's hard to say divisionally, I guess, because I think Edmonton, although Babcock can you can comment on that however you want, and 99% of the time it's going to be something bad, as it should be. But I think that's kind of going to jumpstart Edmonton into this kind of back to those back-to-back Cup Finals run. They obviously got eliminated in the first round. Maybe there's a little bit of a resurgence from the group here health-wise. Anaheim's knocking on that door as well. Obviously, they won a playoff round. They're in that divisional spot. Vegas, obviously, just with a cup run as well. So it's hard to say maybe divisionally. We know the Central stack with those 3 teams that seem to be making the playoffs every single year, no matter what order you put them in. I don't think it's just a wild card spot for this team. I think this team now has a real good opportunity to break into the division.
All right, pick is in, and the second overall pick, as we could have predicted at this point, Ivar Stenberg going to the San Jose Sharks out of the SHL. We've seen this guy. If you're paying attention to hockey, I mean, his prospect name brand really shot up, I would say, as the World Juniors came along, and also as the, any sort of international event. And then his SHL numbers obviously started to break some records here. I know you had kind of pointed that out, Jack, that he broke Matt Sundin's record, Daniel Sedin's record, and was inching in on being maybe one of the best SHL players to play at his age.
Yeah, I think when you make kind of an impression where you're only beating guys like Matt Sundin, like Daniel Sundin, like these names aren't just random names. I mean, these are Hall of Fame players, all-time Swedish players. It doesn't really get better than that. This guy dominates all three zones of the ice, and that's the most enticing thing about him. He may not turn out to be this 120, 115, 110 point guy like the McKennas, like these guys project as, but this guy rarely makes mistakes. The biggest thing about Ivar Stenberg is his motor, and that's what teams love. I think that's why San Jose probably decided to make this pick or to really trade back and be able to have an opportunity to select a defenseman at 9 so they could get this guy. This guy, if he plays with Celebrini, I mean, Celebrini might score 60 goals. He's all around the puck. He's constantly on the puck. And his best trait, too, is getting guys the puck. So Stenberg, no matter what, I think had to be here at number 2. His mature play really, really sets it for me. This guy's going to be playing in the NHL next year. And like we were talking about just before, like it doesn't really get better for the Sharks than an NHL-ready guy. He's played with the big boys in the SHL. He's done it on the World Championship stage. He dominated the World Juniors. It's a perfect spot that San Jose has gotten themselves into once again, kind of like with the Misa pick. Obviously, you have Sam Dickinson and Celebrini as well on the upper echelon of draftees. It's awesome. If you're a Sharks fan, like absolutely excited to grab this guy at pick number 2.
And maybe talk a little bit about, too, like how important is it to have a guy like Ivar Stenberg, who's played a full year in the SHL playing against, grown men. Like, I think we've seen that argument used a lot from, some of these international prospects who are coming into the NHL and their experience of playing against, not 18, 19, and 20-year-olds like most of the time in the NCAA or the CHL. You have a guy like Stenberg who's played against, like a 25, 30-year-old in the SHL. Like, there's a huge difference. Whether the player is skilled or not, like, there's a different brand of hockey you need to play when you're playing against much stronger, developed human beings. So how important is that going to be for Stenberg's first year as he kind of molds his game into the NHL?
Yeah, I think that has to be the best way to put it for this guy, right? Like it doesn't get better than having a guy who's NHL ready right off the gate. I think another thing that really helps Stenberg is his ability to blend in with other players. And the reason I say that, and it might come off a little bit confusing, this guy played on a line with Anton Frondel, who was a 3rd overall pick. He played with Bergstrom, I believe it was, who was a high 2nd overall pick. Like, he has the ability to play with really good players and still be able to stick out when maybe he's not having his best game. So if he's on a line with Celebrini, if he's on a line with, I guess Celebrini and Will Smith would be the proper way to put it. Even if he's on a line with Misa or Toffoli or Wenberg, whoever it may be, this guy's going to be an excellent NHL player next year.
Yeah. And then maybe also, I think the guy we kind of compared him to the closest would have been Mitch Marner. And I think you see Mitch Marner, who obviously spent a bulk of his career in Toronto and had a ton of success there. People who say his time in Toronto was a failure I think you're attributing the failure to the wrong type of word, but definitely compares a lot to Mitch Marner. Obviously his stature and size, but like you said, elite 3-zone play is something that you've mentioned a lot. Other than that, are you looking at his playmaking ability when you're making this comparison?
Yeah, absolutely. The puck skills are really high too. Obviously we've seen assists, a lot more assists over goals on a stat line, which is very common for most players, obviously, but nonetheless, like you're going to put him on a line with a pure goal scorer like Celebrini. Like I said, I can easily see Celebrini scoring 6, maybe not easily, 60 is not an easy number, but with a guy like this, it makes a lot of sense. Aside from his 3-zone play, it's definitely the puck skills and the playmaking skill. We saw that come about at the World Juniors. Obviously, Sweden won the tournament, and he also, collected whatever it was, 10 points.
Look at that, Jack, for your New York Rangers. have traded
Big
for
deal
Pavel
here.
Grafaya.
It's going to be interesting. Obviously, you have to assume pick 5 is in play. I would assume that means pick 5 maybe gets flipped to Detroit for Larkin. I don't see why Vegas would need to pick at number 5. I don't
So
know
you're
what
thinking three-way
else.
trade.
Well, maybe not a 3-way trade, but I'm thinking a flip. I'm thinking a flip
Oh,
because
okay.
there's no reason for
Got
Vegas to pick at number 5, right?
I got you.
So
Like
it would
another
make
trade.
more
Another
sense
trade.
for Vegas to flip for Larkin. Now, maybe pick 5 stays, and this is Vincent Trocheck. And
Yeah.
then Vegas gets their centerman. Now, Dorofeev obviously is a pure goal scorer. It's something that the Rangers need badly after losing Panarin. I think Lafreniere can still fill a role of a big goal scorer, but I'm happy with it. Like, I think this is you. If Drury's going to consistently talk about a retool, this is the guy you need. This is a perfect retool guy. He's 20. I think he's 26 or 25. He's young. He's able to put the puck in the back of the net. So we'll see what the return is. I would imagine it's 5 or Trocheck.
We have a Pickin,
So
and it's Caleb
forward,
Malhotra.
we'll see what it is.
Malhotra 3.
Caleb Malhotra
to the
at 3.
Vancouver Canucks. There it is. Despite the nepotism remarks with Caleb Malhotra and his father Manny as the head coach for the Canucks, Malhotra goes number 3. Reuniting, I guess, son and dad for now. I mean, this was the biggest thing for me, and I tweeted about this yesterday. Caleb Malhotra has been their guy. Vancouver Canucks, from everything I've read, has been their guy, the guy they've zeroed in on for the last 2 to 3 months, as they know they were going to finish, obviously, near the bottom. I think they wanted either Stenberg or Gavin McKenna, but you can't tell everyone this is your guy and then hire his dad and be like, yeah, you know what, we're not going to draft him anymore. And I think Caleb Malhotra really cemented himself as the 3rd overall pick throughout the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. This is super exciting for Vancouver. I had the pleasure of watching this guy a lot throughout the OHL playoffs. I would argue over Sam O'Reilly and Cool Baudouin, who were both first-round picks, by the way, both representing Canada at the World Junior stage. Both guys are 2 years older than him. He was the best player in the OHL playoffs. Brantford had a stacked lineup. I think they had 5 first-round picks on their team, 6 if you want to include him now. Jet Luchenko, who is the Flyers' first-rounder, played games in the NHL, was told that he was Malhotra's winger. Malhotra wasn't Luchenko's center. Malhotra dominated that line, which I think is crucial when you're looking at a young guy in the middle of the ice. He plays such a smart brand of hockey. We've talked a lot about Nick Suzuki as a comparison. He dominates the middle of the ice. His speed outside is excellent, and his playmaking ability really tops the whole kind of system off. He's an excellent player. He's only going to get better next year. He's obviously committed to Boston College. He's going to play a ton there. He's going to have good players on his wing. Maybe Tynan Lawrence jumps to the wing. There's a lot of opportunities for Boston College to be good next year. This guy's going to center line that entire team, being the 3rd overall pick. You're right when it comes down to who we thought it was going to be. It was Malhotra the whole way. You can talk about nepotism. You can talk about it all. Adam Lowry played for his dad in Winnipeg for a bit there. It's the player. The player's a good player. He's there.
Exactly. Yeah. There's obviously for those of you who don't know Chase Reed, there's a lot of smoke you could say now because Malhotra went 3rd, but Chase Reed to go 3 to Vancouver after most mocks had Malhotra going 3 for a very long time. And then over the past 24 hours, if you're even looking at, odds, the odds significantly changed to get Caleb Malhotra and Chase Reed 3, I guess you could say as well. You mentioned Caleb Malhotra being comparable to Nick Suzuki, and I think that is spot on. I don't know, when you're hearing that comparison, when scouts are making that comparison, and you're a GM, I don't know how you don't go and get the next Nick Suzuki, if you want to call it that, considering how good Nick Suzuki's been for the Montreal Canadiens. You saw what a prolific player he was in the playoffs and throughout the regular season, newly a Selke winner, which is, I mean, if you look at the Selke list, like, tell me those guys. I want to say most Selke winners have Stanley Cups. Like you look at, Reinhart, Alexander Barkov, Patrice Bergeron, Kopitar, players like that, the two-way kind of forwards who are always kind of complementing both sides of the ice. So you're getting comparisons drawn to Caleb Malhotra. You're doing something right. Or sorry, Nick Suzuki, you're doing something right.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I think Nick Suzuki, whether it was his play at the Olympics, obviously he was kind of questioned whether he was going to be on that team or not. He ended up scoring obviously some big goals for Team Canada despite the loss, unfortunately. But again, kind of set his name when it came to the playoffs. He's been that guy for Montreal. I think another thing you can look at is his leadership skill. When we wanted to talk about a kind of guy who, like I said, he's Luchenko's centerman. I think that also taps into the leadership ability of this guy to be a big leader on a team as a 17-year-old that was projected to win the whole thing is another notable trait. And I think for a lot of Vancouver fans, that's probably kind of important. When you look at the noise that is included in Vancouver, whether it's been Besser, who's obviously still there, Pedersen, who's still there, but Quinn Hughes kind of leaving, not unexpectedly, but when he is the captain of the team, he wanted out. There's all these different things that kind of step in. And I think that's an important trait for Vancouver fans to believe a guy wants to be there and wants to truly win with the Canucks. And I think that's another trait that probably came into making this pick.
Yeah, now let's look at how we're grading this. I'm giving this... Oh, it's hard not to give this another A, but I'm gonna go A because I thought this was the right pick the whole time. To be totally honest with you, after hearing obviously, as I mentioned, Scott Wheeler being one of the better scouts who writes for The Athletic, having this as their number one guy for so long, you stick with your number one guy. It's like the movie Draft Day. It was always Vontae. It was always Caleb Malhotra. For everyone who said Chase Reed, it was always Caleb Malhotra. So I'm going with an A.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay with you right there. It's an A. Like I think this is another kind of Stenberg McKenna situation where you don't get too crazy. You kind of follow the dotted line. You have your guy from day one, and he ends up falling in your lap, and you take that pick. So I like this pick. It makes a lot of sense. Vancouver obviously has some good defense prospects. Maybe not prospects anymore, but obviously Z Buem is there. You have the other Pedersen is there as well, Elias Pedersen. They have a young core there that is ready to be built off. Obviously, Phil Peroni-Kissiller, he's a good defenseman. So there was real no need to draft a defenseman here. It is a rebuilding team. They have some time to still make some moves, and nonetheless, they get their center of the future, which is great.
Yeah, and we'll see how Chat graded this pick as well, with Caleb Malhotra going to the Vancouver Canucks third overall. And Chad has been aligned with us, I would say, so far, Larmer, with another A coming forward here for Mr. Malhotra as we get on with the draft here. And as they mentioned in chat as well, this is where the draft really starts. I'm surprised that we still, when we got the trade alert, I was totally prepared for it to be the Sabres trading that fourth overall pick. Now, we still don't know 100% what the trade details are for the New York Rangers and the Vegas Golden Knights. We can't necessarily assume that fifth overall pick will be in that trade, but it could very well be, which would also shake up things because has Vegas ever had a top 10 pick? I don't think they've ever
trade him anyway.
What's that? Sorry?
I said they trade him anyway.
Yeah, they trade them every single time. So that's why it makes sense that you're thinking that maybe this trade is going to be something that's just kind of a stepping stone, a building for the Vegas Golden Knights.
It does say, we do have from chat, Chris has said it's the 26th overall pick, a third round pick, number 92, and a 2028 top 10 first. This is an A-plus trade for the Rangers. You're getting a 30-goal scorer for a late first rounder, essentially, and hopefully a pick that may not matter in a couple years. We also have this trade as well. Giving up only picks for Peterka, I think, is another win for Boston. Not having to give up any of that young core that I mentioned earlier, whether it's Hagens, Minton, Husninov. I guess maybe you can throw Matty Poitras in there. I know he's been a little bit unfortunate skill-wise or success-wise over the last year. Dean Letourneau is another big prospect. Not having to give that up for Boston and getting a skilled top six winger is a huge win.
Oh, and we have the pick is in for the Buffalo Sabres at number 4. Daxon Rudolph. Wow. That is a draft turner. That is a TSN turning point for this draft. At this point, I'm not going to call this a reach because and I'll give you credit. We were making mock draft videos 5 months ago, and you were, this guy's going to be a top 10 pick, maybe a top 5 pick. Wow, what a pick by the Buffalo Sabres to go Daxon Rudolph. Jarmo Kekalainen, again, just pushing the envelope. This is a guy, maybe the best offensive minded defenseman in the draft? Would you say that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, I've been on this guy for a long time, probably dating back to the new year for sure. Like, this guy's shot, he might have the best shot in the draft from a defenseman. I know he's reached upper 100 miles an hour on his slap shot. He's a great skater. I think I would probably have Smits, Carls, and Reed over him as skating, but that's not really a knock when you talk about the skating ability from these guys. The way he possesses the puck up the ice, maybe the best in the draft. I think one thing that separates him from Chase Reed is kind of not really down. It's not really a downhill defenseman when he's coming to the neutral zone. Rudolph beats you with speed. He's back-to-back 20 goal scorers in the Western League. We talked about it earlier. It seems like the Western League kind of dominates puck players or points at this rate. But 28 goals as a defenseman kind of doesn't really go unnoticed. I had this guy compared to Brock Faber. I see a lot of Zach Werenski in his game. I see a lot of Jacob Chychrun in this game. Maybe that's a talk of more so the goal-scoring ability. He's kind of been ranked high. I'm pretty sure he was a number 1 overall pick in the WHL. He's been captain of the Hlinka team. He's been captain of the U17s or U16s as well. He's kind of been there every step of the way with Veerhoff. It sounded like those guys kind of separated himself. I had him being pinned as a top 10 pick. Was it this high? No. I don't want to say it's a reach. I do believe that maybe Reed was a better pick now, but it does make sense when you talk about Buffalo. They have so many defensemen that are ready to play right now. This guy's going to go to the University of Denver. He's going to play a ton. And maybe in 2 or 3 years down the road, when maybe Power needs a contract, Samuelson maybe gets shipped out, Timmins is maybe gone. Like, this guy can step in right away and be a good player. Let me retract, not right away, but at that time, in 2 to 3 years' time, he can step in and be a ready player, top 4 defenseman instantly. A little bit shocking for sure, but I don't hate it for Buffalo. If Buffalo's going to pick a defenseman and they got their guy, then they got their guy.
Yeah. So let's grade this. I know you said Chase Reed was obviously maybe the better pick. I'm going to agree with that, and I love Daxon Rudolph as well. In my mock draft, I had him going 7 to the Seattle Kraken. They missed out on him. I'm giving this a B just because it could be maybe a little bit of a reach, like you mentioned.
I'm gonna go B plus, and the reason I'm gonna go B plus is just because I don't want to be the guy betting against Jarmo Kekalainen right now. If he feels like he got his guy, then he got his guy at pick number 4. If it's a reach, maybe it's a reach, and maybe it'll make Blackhawks fans feel a little bit better as well.
Yeah, well, I don't know. If you're a Blackhawks fan, do you want Bowen Byram or do you want Daxon Rudolph? I don't know. I would be a little bit more excited about Daxon Rudolph, but
maybe it's close. It's tight. It's tight.
It is tight. It is tight. Let's see. I mean, Chad has already spoken their piece about this, but if they have a grade, they have a C grade for Daxon Rudolph. Wow, a little surprising considering some of the comments we were seeing. We had Jazz in there saying that feels more like a Brant Clark, which could definitely draw some comparisons. If you're looking at his utility maybe on the power play, I feel like Daxon Rudolph will be very, very helpful on the power play. But overall, I think a pretty solid pick for the Buffalo Sabres. Jack, now we have your New York Rangers on the clock. Let's revisit that trade a little bit and maybe go through it. We know it's not the 5th overall pick, obviously, that's going now that they're on the clock. That seems pretty obvious. Yeah. But again, you're very happy with this trade and what's coming back for Dorofeyev. At 2026 first, it was originally not even the Rangers pick. And then you had a third and a 2028 top 10 protected first. That's light years away. Yeah. We don't have to worry. Chris Drury will be gone by then, so it's fine.
Exactly. Yeah, I think in hindsight, this is kind of rocking with Drury's words of what a retool means. Obviously, Vegas felt the need that they couldn't pay this guy. It's going to be interesting to see what the Rangers give him. They do have a lot of cap. Obviously, they cleared off Artemi Panarin. They're probably going to clear off Vincent Trocheck maybe tonight even. I think now that they do lose their later first rounder, that they will try to trade Trocheck tonight and try to regain that first round pick. If they do want to jump back in, obviously, maybe they're content with taking their pick here at 5 and then moving on with whatever they feel is best. But when you're getting a 30-time goal scorer to kind of fill that goal scoring need, obviously Zibanejad is still an upper echelon scorer, but after that, it kind of does get a little bit bleak. They did need to fill a top 6 wing if they do acquire McTavish and trade Trocheck out. It kind of sets the tone of maybe something along the lines of Lafreniere, Zibanejad, Perreault, Dorofeyev, Miller, and then McTavish in the middle, maybe Miller on the wing, or vice versa, one on the wing and one not. So the top six does look a little bit better now with Dorothea, like 100% it does. And you're not giving up a 5th overall pick, and maybe you're still holding on to gaining another first-round pick through Trocheck. So if they do get a first, and you're going to tell me we got Dorothea for a top 10 protected and a 3rd-round pick, I'd take that every day of the week. Now it's just a matter of what he gets money-wise. But it's a great trade for the Rangers. Drury kind of living up to what he said, and now we're sitting here with pick number 5 as well. I'll be interested to see where they go with Chase Reed there now.
Yeah, so let's look at maybe the big board to see kind of what prospects we have left on, obviously, early on in the draft. But this is, we talked earlier about the Rangers and what you thought they were going to do. You were pretty convinced Albert Smits was going to be the guy because he seems to be maybe the most pro-ready defender in this draft amongst this class, like a guy who could turn it on, game 1 of the season and start to make an impact. But then you also mentioned that if Chase Reed is there, that they go Chase Reed. So are you kind of narrowing it down to Chase Reed and Albert Smits, or are you opening the door at all for Carson Carrolls?
Yeah, I think I would even still open the door to Vigo Bjork, just because I think a center sort of makes sense. I think the only reason I'd still lean Smits over Reed is because Smits is a left-hand shot, Reed's a right-hand shot. Adam Fox is obviously there kind of blocking it out. But nonetheless, they're going to get a good player here, a good defenseman. Hopefully, I think Bjork is still an option. But I'll be interested to see where they go. I think Smits is still my guess. Just because I think they've been on him for a long time. He is NHL ready.
Okay, here we go. Pick is in. Were you right? Albert Smits out of Latvia getting drafted to the New York Rangers. So staying pat. So this is big because Chase Reed is now falling outside of the top 5. If you would have seen how this how the NHL draft lottery went, would you think that Chase Reed would have fallen out of the top 5?
No, not at all. Talked about it before. Like I thought I got a pleasure of watching him a lot in their series against Kitchener Rangers. He really does demand the puck. He's a little bit kind of, like I said, we're talking about Rudolph. He's a little bit slower coming up the ice. He doesn't really jump, but he still gets there and he's always in good position. The only thing that I can argue with about Reed is maybe teams worried that a lot of his points came on the power play and not a lot of 5-on-5 stuff. But the Smits pick makes a lot of sense. He's probably going to play in the NHL next year, maybe. Like I wouldn't be entirely shocked. He is a left-hand shot, which is something the Rangers do need. I believe it was looking like Gavrikov, Vakanainen, and Matthew Robertson on the left side, which obviously is not very great. Robertson's good, but Vakanainen kind of needs to get going. And Smits makes sense. He can jump in probably next year and play right away. I think the Rangers have been on this guy longer than most people have thought. John Lilly is a big European guy. They draft a lot of European prospects inside the top 10. If you take out Lafreniere, which was kind of a given, I think something like their last 10 selection, maybe not 10, but their last 4 at least, when you want to go, Kakko, Kravtsov, and Elias Anderson are all European players that were drafted inside the top 10, and now you're adding Albert Smits to that group. So it makes a lot of sense. I do like the pick a lot, and he's going to hopefully slide in and play NHL minutes next year, which is huge for the Rangers.
Yeah, and I think one big thing for Smits to kind of mention, he played so much hockey last season. Like if you look at, he was playing in the Liga, and then he went and played in the Dell for like a playoff run, and then he went and played the World Juniors, and then he played for and then he was, like you said, played on the Olympic team, and I would say it was arguably probably one of the better Latvian players in the Olympics for that squad. And if you look at it, a year ago from today, he was playing in the under 18 for Latvia as well. So he's played a lot of hockey, a lot of different levels. He mentioned at the World Juniors when the reporters were asking, are you scared of the big bad like first overall picks and the first round picks that Canada presents? And he's extremely confident. Like you said, he seems like he's going to be able to come in and make a charge right away. And looking at this New York Rangers team too, like they were obviously lucky enough to get a pick where they did to a certain extent. Obviously last year didn't go the way they wanted to, so no harm, no foul there. But looking at this team and you insert Albert Smits, as a Rangers fan, and I know you are, I'm pretty happy. And you add Pavel Dorofeyev to that list as well.
Yeah, I think For as much slack as Drury has gotten and the letter, and it was kind of BS and it didn't make a lot of sense to send it out. And then it was really quiet at the trade deadline. They only traded Panarin. I like Liam Greentree as a prospect. After him, there was nothing. But when you want to talk about a retool, these are the kind of guys that make a lot of sense for it. You can say that maybe Reed has more potential. Maybe even Veerhoff or Carls have more potential down the line. But if you want to get an impact player right now, you want to still hold this core as Zibanejad and Miller and Fox that are obviously getting a little bit older, even Shesterkin as well. You need guys that are going to impact the team right now. Dorofeev is 100% that. I believe Smits will play in the NHL next year. I'd be kind of shocked if he doesn't. So it does make a lot of sense for the Rangers. We'll see what goes on the rest of the night. I still believe Vincent Trocheck has an opportunity to get moved, but this guy is definitely someone that makes a lot of sense for the Rangers as well. So nothing but happiness here for sure. I love the pick. I think he's going to be an NHLer for a long time. I think people are not too familiar with his game and are going to be kind of shocked when he steps out and he's a good player.
Yeah, he's a great player. Let's grade this 5th overall pick by the New York Rangers. I'm going with a B+ for Albert Smits, the Latvian, going over to the big city, going over to Manhattan. What are you giving this as a fan? And actually take the fan hat off.
Yeah, I'll take the fan out of it, and I'll go A- just because I do think Chase Reed may project as a better player, and I do think they could have pivoted and maybe gone with him, but I'm a little biased.
Fair enough. We saw Chris's reaction right away in the chat, and I'd assume from the chat we'd see a pretty solid overall grade, and there you go, an A grade. We went for a C for Daxon Rudolph, now we're getting an A for Albert Smith going 5th overall. As long as we stay on track, it seems like the chat will be happy with us. So I'm fine with giving it a B+. I like your A- rating. It's definitely a little bit taking the fan out of it, which I think is important, Jack. You gotta wear that hat sometimes, which is very good.
That's right.
Okay, now we're looking at the Calgary Flames at the 6th overall pick. Now, again, what kind of situation are we looking at now if Chase Reed falls past here? Because, as we mentioned, this was a team that was very high on Carroll's Veerhoff because it seems like they want to somewhat keep that North Dakota connection after drafting Cole Reshny last year. But you also have Viggo Bjork in this conversation and was one of their top picks as well, or potential picks. As we're highlighting their team needs, they need a center, just like a couple teams in Western Canada do. Is it going to be Calgary to take Viggo Bjork? Is it going to be the Jets? Where do you see this pick going at this point?
Maybe I'll go off the rails and say it is Viggo Bjork here. I think Chase Reed is going to drop now. Obviously, there's something there that teams don't like. Or, unfortunately, with this draft, for a long time has been pinned as so dominant and so deep. Teams have their guys, and once they're slotted in on them, they're going to stick with them, and they don't want to pivot out. I mean, all of a sudden, San Jose is probably licking their chops, knowing they're going to get a really good defenseman. But I'm going to go with Viggo Bjork here. I'm going to go off the rails a bit.
Carson Carroll's 6th overall pick to the Calgary Flames. Not overly surprised, I will say. I think this is something we kind of saw coming to a certain degree. That big city comment was huge. And you mentioned it as a Rangers fan, like a guy, he's from Manitoba, similar story to maybe Brady Martin last year, like a farm kid from a small town in Manitoba. But I think there's so much to be excited with this Carson Carroll's kid, considering, his ability to skate, his size. He has a very good highlight tape where he's knocking people over. So I think the Flames and Flames fans should be extremely excited about this pick.
Yeah, I think this is another situation that is a team is getting their guy. We've probably seen that with the last 3 picks now. But yeah, Brady Martin's a great comparison. This is a big farm boy who kind of understands hockey is more than just a point game. Even though the points come with him very easily, he probably is the best two-way player in this draft, at least right now at his age of 18 years old. But nonetheless, the skating and the ability to close gaps through the neutral zone, I think, is what teams are most impressed by. He's a very mature game. He's going to go play top-line minutes, probably with Veerhoff next year at the University of North Dakota. They're definitely a dark horse to make some noise coming into the Frozen Four. Maybe not a dark horse, but a front runner for sure. Carroll's reminds me a lot of Charlie McAvoy. And the reason I say this is because I think there's a quiet noise of the skill that comes with him. People kind of see the physical game, they see the skating ability, but they don't think points out of the gate, but the points are there. He has the ability to be a number 1 defenseman on a power play, on a championship team as well. I think this guy is probably, and it's hard to say with Reed, but he's up there with nobody else or with everybody else in terms of potential for the top defenseman in this class.
Yeah, really, really interesting to see Reed continue to fall. Let's grade this pick. I'm going.
It's hard with Reed falling.
It's hard with Reed still being there. Like, should that be something where it's deterring my grade of this being a good? No, I like Carroll's. I almost liked him more than I liked Reed. 6. I'm going B plus again. It's a B plus. I can't be mad with this pick. If I'm a Flames fan, I'm fired up.
Yeah,
no fun in
I'm gonna go with a B because I think 5 was probably my number, where Smits was the last guy that I could see Reed maybe dropping to. For any team going forward, Reed should feel like a delicacy. But obviously maybe there's something there, or maybe this is just teams trying to stick with their guy, which obviously we've maybe seen with the last 3 picks. So I'm going to stick with a B, but Seattle's gone into this pick. I know this pick was kind of shopped around as well.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. I mean, that Jason Robertson deal seemed like that was probably going to get Dallas this pick. Obviously, yeah. Jason Robertson said no. I mean, what's wrong with Seattle? I thought Seattle was a great city. But yeah, I know. Apparently not for Jason Robertson. When you grow up in California, you just want to continue to live down south. So yeah, this is a really interesting team, and I think interesting scenario for the Kraken, because we've seen the Seattle Kraken continuously take forwards in the first round of the drafts. You know, last year you go with Matty Beniers, their second overall pick, however long ago. Do they go Chase Reed? Because I know this was supposed to be Daxon Rudolph or Keaton Vierhoff. So, but now with Chase Reed on the block, does Vierhoff, you have to say, no, we can't go with Keaton Vierhoff. We can't go with our guy. Chase Reed is too good of a prospect. He was the best defenseman in the draft. He was supposed to go third. What are the people saying when he was supposed to go third? What are they saying now?
Yeah, I mean, I think Seattle has to take him here. It makes a lot of sense. Like, you need a defenseman. The projected number 1 defenseman in this class is now fallen into your lap. I don't see where else they go. I also think that maybe these guys had Carls or Rudolph dropping to them, and now all of a sudden they didn't. I don't know if they're as high on Vierhoff as maybe Winnipeg or San Jose is. So I would think Chase Reed kind of drops into it. Makes every finger should be pointing in that direction. It makes so much sense for the Seattle Kraken to take Chase Reed here.
And when does it get to a point? Let's say the Seattle, if they do this, I think they're make a wrong decision. And then we're going to be given some bad grades. If this is Keaton Vierhoff instead of Chase Reed, this is going to be a bad grade. If it is Keaton Vierhoff, when do the phones start ringing? Or do you think the phones already start ringing for Winnipeg and San Jose and all those teams? Imagine San Jose gets Chase Reed right in their lap, 9th overall after making all those moves. Oh my God.
I think after this pick, I do, because now the thing is, I don't think Winnipeg's going to trade their pick.
Pick is in, and Chase Reed. Okay, good job, Seattle. Very good job. What a steal. I mean, if this wasn't Chase Reed, we'd have a lot of serious questions to ask, because there's no way he was. I mean, you talked about it. You watched him play for the Sioux, you know, when you were obviously working for the Rangers, Kitchener Rangers. How much of a difference maker, I know they lost that series, but how much of a difference maker was he in that series, and how much did he stand out compared to the rest of the players he's playing against?
Yeah, I think looking at that series, the thing that impressed me the most is definitely the age gap. When you have a player like Reed that steps onto the OHL for the first time, by the way, I know he wasn't a rookie, but playing in his draft, first time in the OHL, playing against obviously Memorial Cup champion team and the Rangers, who are fluttered with first round picks. Well, not fluttered, but 2. And they have a lot of depth guys who aren't really entering the draft outside of 1. They're older players. He really made his name known. He wants the puck. He's able to dominate the offensive zone. He's physical in nature as well, obviously being 6'2" or 6'3". And he plays to his strength. I think that's the most impressive thing. He really, really made a name for himself at the World Juniors to score. I think he scored 2 really big goals, although I know the U.S. didn't medal. He was definitely a name to be stuck with. Zach Werenski is a very easy comparable for this guy. I know only 18 goals in the OHL. I think there's more. He does have the potential to be that number 1 power play guy who can really step up and score some goals for the Seattle Kraken, which is also, by the way, something they do need. Maybe not off the back end, you would think of it. Now, all of a sudden, they sort of get that. Much like Daxton Rudolph, he's a physical player as well. He plays downhill. He's a little bit slower than him in terms of pace, but he does have a good skating ability as well. He's quick on his feet. He closes gaps really well. He's good through the neutral zone. This is an excellent pick for Seattle.
Yeah, I honestly, if you made a mock draft and you had Chase Reed going 7th, I commend you, because I thought he was just way too good of a player to fall that far. And when you're getting compared to a guy like Zach Werenski, I think it's hard for GMs to be like, yeah, how do we pass on this guy? And I mean, he's coming in pretty much at the same stature of Zach Werenski. Zach Werenski has dealt with a ton of injury concerns, but if Zach Werenski wasn't as injured, I think for one, he would have more than just the Norris he won this year. I think he would have multiple at this point. And I think he would be, I know he's in that caliber with Cale Makar, but I think he'd be even closer if his injury concerns weren't as prevalent. So I think extremely good pick by the Seattle Kraken. This is an A+. This is an A+ for Chase Reed. For Chase Reed and the Seattle Kraken. Being able, and I know it's not entirely like Seattle didn't do anything to make him fall this far, but you're kind of at the hands of everyone else's mistakes. So A+ for Chase Reed.
Yeah, I'm going A+ too. This is the same as sort of the Ivar Stenberg, where you have a guy who just falls in your lap. You have to take him. You can't really think of it any other way. I know Calgary maybe had Carl's pinned, as the Rangers have Smith's pinned, but I think Reed more than anybody, with this kind of flu of maybe teams scared to draft certain players because they end up picking where they want to go. Like, this guy got cut from the USHL, ended up kind of trying to figure out where he should go, lands in Sault Ste. Marie, makes a bunch of noise. He's going to Michigan State next year. He makes the World Junior team. He plays great for the Americans, and now he's ranked incredibly high in the draft. You don't pass up players like this often. Great for Seattle that he ended up here.
Let's see what we got from the chat as well on this pick. Chase Reed, and they're an A. Honestly, I could have told you that. Chat has been aligned with us for the most part, other than Daxton Rudolph. They don't like surprises. Obviously, this was a good surprise for Chase Reed. So, yeah, Emily, I agree. I can't believe Chase Reed slid this far as well. We are both flabbergasted, if you want to use a word for it. But, yeah, definitely a very surprising pick. We'll see kind of where Winnipeg goes from this point. I think other than obviously Rudolph and Chase Reed almost swap like positions, you could almost say, to a certain degree. I think a lot of people peg Seattle to take Rudolph or Veerhoff. So do the Winnipeg Jets go with Viggo Bjork, or do you see them going with Keaton Veerhoff? I personally think I see them going with Viggo Bjork. I think they need so much help at center that it will only be the right decision at this point to go with Viggo Bjork.
Yeah, I think Viggo Bjork makes a lot of sense for the Jets, but I think Veerhoff might be their guy just in terms of who they believe was going to be here at this rate. I think now an interesting kind of topic is questioning where a lot of teams had Rudolph on their list. Like, let's say if Winnipeg had Rudolph behind them and they believe Bjork was going to be the player that was gone at pick number 6 or pick number 7, whichever it was. Maybe it's going to be interesting for Buffalo or for San Jose, here in a second, for who they believe is going to be at 9. And if it's not a defenseman, then what? But I would guess Viggo Bjork here. It makes more sense for Winnipeg to grab a center, but I wouldn't be shocked if it is Veerhoff as well.
And do you think there's any? Oh, the pick is in. Here we go. Perfect. I was about to say, is it going to be a surprise? Viggo Bjork, 8th overall to the Winnipeg Jets. Again, not a huge surprise, but someone that the Jets tremendously needed. Talk about maybe just how good this guy was in the latter half of the season. I think a lot of people, which is a little unfair, people who don't know him as well, will tie a lot of his success to Ivar Stenberg, but he can really carry his own and drive his own sort of play.
Yeah, I think the first thing you think of this guy in terms of maybe a downfall is his height. And like we have talked about a little bit earlier, teams should probably start veering away from that. He had an excellent World Championships, 6 points in those 8 games. He only had 1 goal, but that's not what this player is. This player is a high creative, high hockey sense. he makes plays all over the ice that you're kind of like, oh, wasn't really sure that was possible. But he does that. That's how good he is. Like we had mentioned earlier, he was kind of neck and neck for a lot of the way through U15, U16, U17 for the number 1 overall pick with Gavin McKenna. Obviously, his name kind of got separated. Not too much going 8th overall to Winnipeg. But this is a great situation for Winnipeg. They've gotten a lot younger over the past year, trading guys like they did for Logan Stanley, getting Isak Rosen back as well. So kind of this flew of players coming in for Winnipeg now, and Bjork only makes that pool stronger. I think this is another guy who we maybe see in the NHL in a year's time. He's probably going to get a lot of SHL time next year, and then hopefully can make the jump the following year. But yeah, like you hit the nail on the head with that. His later half really slotted him into a top 10 pick where maybe teams earlier had him creeping out maybe 15 and up. He was excellent at the World Juniors. We obviously know they won 9 points in 7 games as a draft eligible player. That doesn't happen too often. Top of the line guys do that. He did that. World Championships, he was great. And in the SHL, he was good as well. He had 15 points in those 42 games. So that's pretty good for a 5'9" guy playing in probably the league's next best or the world's next best league after the NHL.
Yeah, and I think that's obviously very important to note. We talked about that with Stenberg. And when we're trying to compare Viggo Bjork to someone in the NHL, I know you talked about the Jackson Blakes and the Logan Stankovens. I know he draws a lot of comparisons to Marco Rossi and what Marco Rossi was maybe as a prospect, and maybe what the flashes we saw of him in Minnesota. Maybe not as much as what we've seen in Vancouver, unfortunately, but I think Marco Rossi is a pretty good player comparison for Bjork. I think it's going to be interesting to see kind of how he navigates going from obviously the SHL, but still navigating your way from playing at 5'9" in the SHL to the NHL. As much as you're playing against older players, there's definitely a skill gap that you're going to have to adjust to. So I agree. I don't think I see Viggo Bjork as a player who's going to make an impact on the Jets next season, but I think we're going to see maybe a similar trajectory to Marco Rossi. Just hopefully he actually finds his footing.
Yeah, exactly. And Rossi, unfortunately, also had dealt with that health stuff. I don't know if it was his heart or his head. Obviously, he missed a lot of time in Minnesota. But the best comparable for these two players is that the skill is off the roof. It's just really trying to monitor how they can translate it to in-game production. He's very, very creative with the puck. He almost has eyes on the back of his head. That's obviously a term that gets used quite frequently. But he is that kind of player. He sees the ice very well. He's able to find his teammates really well. With Winnipeg, they do have some pure snipers, whether it's Mark Scheifele or Gabriel Velarde. Those players are there. He's not a so bad kind of lineman with them. I think he probably does project more as a winger in the NHL than he does as a center, but sometimes you never know. It's almost like in baseball when you say you get to a certain point where you start just drafting shortstops and center fielders. You draft the athletes. In hockey, that's drafting a centerman. So nonetheless, wherever he projects in the NHL on the ice, I think this is a very good pick for the Jets. They're getting a super creative player.
All right, let's grade this pick then. I'm going to go with a B. I don't think it's really to their fault at all. Like we can't just grade everything an A if we think it was the right pick at that point. But I'm going to go with a B for Bjork for the Jets. What about you?
I'm going to go with a B+. I agree. Like, we're not going to grade everything an A, but you could also argue Winnipeg kind of gets their guy. I mean, after Bjork, it's going to be interesting to see where Tynan Lawrence falls in terms of centerman. But after Bjork, like there's not much. So in terms of centerman, so this is perfect for Winnipeg.
I agree. Okay, and let's see what the chat thinks of this pick, Viggo Bjork. A. Okay, a little bit different than maybe what we thought there, but we'll be aligned with you. We give Viggo Bjork the most credit. And will continue to as he kind of gets makes his way to the NHL. Now the Sharks are on the clock at number 9. Obviously, we talked about it in the pre-draft that they traded William Eklund so they could get this pick so they can find a defenseman. Now, what defenseman is the question at this point? Because I know they were all over Daxton Rudolph because they thought Daxton Rudolph was going to be the guy to fall here. Is this you go with like a Keaton Vierhoff? Is he too similar to Sam Dickinson? Is my question. Do you go with a Ryan Lynn? I know you're really high on Ryan Lynn, or are they going with a Malte Gustafsson?
It's really interesting because, yeah, Vierhoff isn't a great skater. He is bigger. He is physical. But I think this is another thing where you don't overthink this pick. Veerhoff was possibly the number one pick, 5 months ago. We talked about that. I think he probably got too much hate for playing at North Dakota and maybe not being ready to make that jump like his counterparts will be doing next year while he's still there. This is Keaton Veerhoff. It absolutely has to be. The Sharks, once again, probably win this draft, getting Stenberg and Veerhoff, who maybe 5 months ago were pinned as 1, 2, and or two of the top 3 picks alongside McKenna. So I would be shocked if it's anyone other than Veerhoff. I think Greer does a good job of probably keeping things simple. To me, this is Keaton Veerhoff. It has to be. There's no way. I don't know who else it would be defensive-wise. Maybe Ryan Lynn,
there's no chance they go forward, right? Like, I know there's some talented
No.
Like they don't go a Tynan Lawrence, or like Wyatt Cullen's name has been charging up the draft boards for the last 6 months. Or I
think trading Eklund and then going Veerhoff.
Here we go. Pick is in. Keaton Veerhoff. I mean, we have just nailed this draft, to be honest, from this other than Case Reed. But I mean, who knew he was going to go 7th overall? Yeah. Keaton Veerhoff to the San Jose Sharks. As you mentioned, this guy was, I think everyone kind of gave him his applause for going over to the NCAA and going to North Dakota, because it obviously started off really good for him. Started to kind of trail off a little to the end of the year. You saw his stock fall, but I think this is an A+. This is a great pick for the San Jose Sharks, and getting a guy who, do you think he's going to play next year?
I think you'll see him after the Frozen Four. I do. He's not going to. He'll start the year in North Dakota for sure, but I think he'll then jump on the team come whenever they end up bailing out. I think he's that good. There's not too much thinking with this pick. He's gotten some hate for his decision making, but in my mind, it's like this is a 17-year-old kid playing as a underage true freshman in NCAA, which is unheard of. Nobody does that. There were 5 players who were underage or true freshmen playing in NCAA hockey. They're all going to probably be picked in the first round today. At least it's looking like that. 2 of them have gone now with him. This is a great pick. I know the decision making is maybe an issue, but he is 17. The skating, I think, is stuff you can work on, but he's also 6'3", 6'4". The way he sees the ice is probably his biggest strength. His ability to know when to jump up compared to when to stay back is a very good kind of motor for him. I see Aaron Ekblad a bit. I also see a little bit of Rasmus Dahlin. I know it sounds weird with the skating, but I think the puck skills and the decision-making kind of add up with Dahlin. We know Dahlin stepped in. He was a little bit wild with the puck. He's obviously an excellent skater. Veerhoff, maybe not so much yet, but he's also 17. I think that's something you can work on. He's one of the younger players in this draft. The floor is high, but I think the ceiling is really high too. I think he does have potential to be the best defenseman out of this draft. And of course, knowing the way San Jose's had it over the past few years, this is obviously who they get.
Yeah, there we go. As we see the congratulations tweet from North Dakota. Unfortunately, they don't get the North Dakota connection that they might have, Calgary was trying to go for. Maybe getting Veerhoff, but they get Carson Carrolls instead, and now he goes over to San Jose and starts his own kind of North Dakota connection from there. So kudos to Keaton Veerhoff. Top 10 pick, regardless of even being projected within the top 3 before. This is the prototypical right-handed shot defenseman that every GM is dreaming of. And I'm going to give this grade for this pick an A. I'm not going to, you can't. Like you mentioned it, when you mention something where you're talking about Keaton Veerhoff being a top 2 prospect midway through the year, he hasn't gotten that much bad. That was horrible English. That much worse since 5 months ago. Like, come on, give me a break. This kid is massive, and he's literally the type of defenseman that every GM tries to get on his team to win a Stanley Cup. Jack, what's your grade for this?
Yeah, right along with you. This is an A. We've said it a couple times before. I don't think San Jose thought that he was going to be here at number 9. I definitely didn't think he was going to be here at number 9. Obviously, things change when a player like Reed drops and a player like Rudolph jumps. But nonetheless, here he is in San Jose's lap. And I mean, once again, maybe San Jose's winning this draft. It feels like they have every year.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see what the chat thinks about this pick. And then we're actually there you go. Chat's going with an A grade as well. And we'll take a look at maybe some of the chats that we've gotten throughout the evening, just to kind of check in with everyone to see how they're doing see how their kind of opinions and their takes on maybe some of the things we've been saying. And yeah, we got Mike Spearhead. San Jose Sharks take Stenberg and Veerhoff, who both will play for the Sharks next season. What a run for them. Draft board fell perfect. I mean, I don't necessarily disagree. I think we maybe disagree on the fact that he might not be playing next season. I think another year in North Dakota will do him well for sure. This is so insane. I'm actually laughing. The San Jose Sharks might be God's favorites. I mean, you got to, like, sure, obviously there's a little bit of luck that goes for it, but Mike Greer has done a fantastic job, like taking these picks that he has and exploring what the options and not being afraid to go after it. Like, I feel like you see a lot of hesitation from some GMs, and those are the teams that really, they never move the needle. Like, to be honest, like I'll say the same thing for the Seattle Kraken, apart from what they did with Jason Robertson. But I think this is awesome from the San Jose Sharks and what we're seeing from them. And, that's obviously not a huge hockey community, but it feels like when the San Jose Sharks are good, it is still good for hockey. Like, it's good for that part. Like, remember when the Sharks and the Ducks had such a big rivalry? Like, let's bring that back.
Right.
The Ducks are getting good again. The Sharks are getting good again. And I think you're going to see these two teams kind of go toe-to-toe at this point.
Yeah, 100%. And San Jose is only kind of making that trek towards that. The Pacific, again, is going to start to look like an absolute gauntlet like it has before. It'll be interesting to see how teams end up, or I guess maybe they're not going to respond to this, but it'll be interesting to see how San Jose ends up playing next year because, like the chat said, I do believe both will play in the NHL at some point. Veerhoff maybe come March at the end of Nodak's season, but nonetheless, like we said, they're possibly getting, maybe at one point the number 1 and number 2 prospect in this draft. So it's nonetheless very good for San Jose and good for West Coast hockey.
Yeah, and now we get to pick number 10. Just a reminder for everyone, we are live on the BR Open Ice YouTube and the Bleacher Report app. As we mentioned just before, we are chatting with everyone and trying to get everyone involved. So be sure to get in there if you're not already. The Nashville Predators, I was going to say, this is where it maybe starts to get a little trickier. In terms of, I think this pick is going to be Ethan. Oh, the pick is in. I think it's going to be Ethan Belchitz. Quickly.
I think Cullen.
And the pick, number 10 for the Nashville, Wyatt Cullen. Okay.
Wyatt
okay,
Cullen.
You saw it before, be honest. You saw it before.
No, I didn't. No, I don't have it on.
Okay, no, Wyatt Cullen.
Yeah. Like, I think looking at the way Nashville's draft over the past few years, they did obviously take Cameron Reed, who's going to turn out to be a really good defenseman, probably play in the NHL next year as well after his season with Michigan. Cullen is definitely a player I think teams have to almost live with. Kind of an underwhelming season, almost, is a way I would put it. The National Development Team program wasn't very good. They obviously dominated when they played their own kind of tournament circuit. But when he jumped up to the USHL, I don't want to say he struggled a lot. He did have 16 points in 15 games, but playing against a little bit better of a competition, he didn't necessarily exceed. He does have that NHL status. Obviously, Matt Cullen played 1,500 games, I believe, in the NHL. Like it says on the screen there, he did win three Stanley Cups. So maybe there is a bit of that trust there factor with him. The thing that I think impresses most scouts about Cullen is he kind of doesn't really stop. He doesn't stop. He's constant on the puck. He has strong forechecking skills. He does possess a really good skating ability. He is fast. Speed will play in the NHL. You hope some skill comes along with that. I think the creativity is super high. I saw a little bit of Trevor Zegras in him in terms of a little bit of that creative style, a little bit of that ego on the ice, which is always good. But the motor does kind of separate him and kind of turn him more into like a Troy Terry type of player for me. I think the ability for him to possess a lot of skill and play downhill hockey is impressive for a lot of teams. Maybe a little bit higher than I thought he would go. Definitely, like we said earlier, or you said earlier, he's been a little bit of a late name that has made a lot of noise. But nonetheless, Wyatt Cullen to the Nashville Predators.
Yeah, I think, you talked about his tenacity. I mean, that's got to come from Matt Cullen. Like, Matt Cullen was an absolute dog for all the times he played in the NHL, for all the different teams he played for as well. So I think that's got to come from him. I really like the player comparison of going with Troy Terry. I think this is a guy who, I think you hit it pretty good in terms of like the U.S. national development team a little bit of a down year because I don't think this guy is a 16 goal and 40 game type of player. Like I think that's like his floor, if you want to call it that. I feel like this is a kind of guy who can make ways of being one of an elite goal scorer, a really good goal scorer, and a guy who's getting 80 to 90 points a year. And I think, you know what? Good first pick for Chris McFarland as the new GM for the Nashville Predators, right? Like I thought like going off maybe not off the board, but with Ethan Belchitz, or you have a guy like Tynan Lawrence try to fill that center role because it seems like maybe Brady Martin won't be able to play that center role. But I think this is a great pick. You're taking your best player available or the best player at the top of your board. I like this pick for Nashville overall. I think people might be a little bit surprised. Curious to see what the chat thinks about this pick. Because maybe he's like not as well known as a name, but I'm telling you, as for Nashville fans, you should be excited about this pick for sure.
What's your grade?
All right. My grade for this pick, I'm going B-. Hold me to it. I'm going B- for this grade. I think that's a pretty fair grade. Like I mentioned, I thought this was going to be Belchitz, Tynan Lawrence, take a smash in the mouth kind of pick for Chris McFarland. What do you have for this one?
Yeah, I'm going to go B, just because I think it makes sense maybe in terms of where Nashville wants to draft, maybe more skill than size, which is maybe why they veered away from Lawrence and Belchitz. But I do like this pick. I think it is a good, safe pick for Chris McFarland. And there is some familiarity with his dad playing 2 years in Nashville as well.
That is a good point. I feel like he played everywhere. But Chad's grade?
Everywhere. Yeah.
B. More pretty in line, again. So I'm proud of the chat there for not just, some people just be like, who is Wyatt Cullen? Well, at least you have the Matt Cullen reference, but we haven't seen any D's yet. We've gotten one C, obviously, on Daxon Rudolph. He will remember that, by the way, chat. So just he's been watching. He has someone watching this, and they will know how you're targeting Daxon Rudolph. So just keep that in mind for your next kind of bad grade on a bad player, or someone you think is maybe a bad player. All right, the next pick, 11th overall, the St. Louis Blues. Now, this is interesting that we still haven't seen any of these picks moved. Are you surprised by that? Like 4 picks in the first round. I would still think St. Louis is looking to be a team that's, trying to win now. I know they moved Jordan Kyrou. I love Connor McMichael. I think that was a good spot. It seems like Kyrou wasn't really the destination for him. You get Connor McMichael. You get Milton as well, who I also thought was pretty good. But this team has a ton of draft capital. Are you thinking they pick 11 and move 15, 16? Or are you thinking that maybe this is going to be like a late trade for the Blues?
No, I think this is the pick they definitely keep. I think they probably go Tynan Lawrence here. You want to kind of rebound with that centerman here. It does make a lot of sense as well. I think maybe they move off of maybe 16 and 29, but I don't know if they're in a rush either. Like they obviously tried to get that Jason Robertson deal done. He chose no to sign with St. Louis. There were obviously those picks were involved. I think this pick is going to make sense. A centerman, 15 and 16 are going to be super interesting. I think maybe they veer away and go with some specific defensemen or specific picks with guys that they think they really like. I think Tynan Lawrence makes a lot of sense here. If they were to pick a defenseman, I do think it would be Gustafsson, though.
Okay, yeah. You talked about how prototypical Gustafsson fits with the St. Louis Blues team in terms of his stature and the kind of players they've had in the past. And we're going to find that out right now because the pick is in for the St. Louis Blues. Tynan Lawrence, you're on fire right now. You've called what?
Not bad. Back to back. That's pretty good.
No, you went, Veerhoff too. Veerhoff. Wyatt Cullen and Tynan Lawrence. Tynan Lawrence, we talked about this guy earlier in the year as well. Obviously, that jump to BU wasn't favorable for him, but I think, again, just time. It's going to take a little bit of time for Tynan Lawrence. But this is a prospect that a lot of scouts and a GM who just drafted him should be obviously very excited about this. I imagine this would be Alex Steen's first draft pick, right?
Yeah, I think, yeah. And more so than anything with this guy is, I think what people have to kind of be a little bit patient on is he has dominated every step of the way. When you look at Shattuck St. Mary's, 49 points, and I think it was like 51 games as a 15-year-old playing in their 16, 17-year loop before they make the jump to the USHL. He won the Clark Cup. He won the MVP in the USHL with Muskegon. Being patient with him at Boston University is what's going to really succeed for this guy. Like I said, he's won everywhere he's gone. He's had huge success. Think of Dean Letourneau, right? He had 3 points in 36 games as a true freshman. He jumps out in his second year and has 39 points in 36 games and is all of a sudden this monster 6'8" Bruins prospect. This is likely what's going to happen with Lawrence, and I would only really expect it to happen with Lawrence. He's dominant everywhere he goes. He's a big, strong centerman. I see a lot of John Tavares in his game. I think there's some skill there that maybe people don't point out right away. He is a good skater. He's not a great skater. He's able to keep up with the play. But the best part about this guy is he plays the right brand of hockey and the right strength of hockey, which is good for the St. Louis Blues. This is a guy who's going to fit in the middle six or a top six, center role probably quite quickly for the Blues and kind of rebound right away from having to trade away Jordan Kyrou.
Yeah, I think this is a guy they're probably gonna have to wait on a little bit. Obviously, as we mentioned, with kind of where he's at in his game, I think his USHL numbers are obviously very impressive. Would be awesome, I think, for Blues fans to see this guy make the jump that Dean Letourneau did last season in the NCAA. And I do think you're right that he definitely is the one player. I think this year, when you look at them similarly could be that kind of player. So very excited for Tynan Lawrence to go 11th overall to the St. Louis Blues. Let's grade this. I'm going to go with, honestly, I'm going to go with a B+. I like this pick for Alex Steen. I think this is a smart pick for Alex Steen. I think this is a pick that, with the other picks behind you, this is like your riskier kind of, not even a reach, because I think this guy could have gone in the top 10 for any team. But I think this is a really smart pick for Alex Steen.
Yeah, I'm going to go even higher. I'm going to go with an A. I think when you look at what a team needs and what I think this guy is going to be able to do, I imagine he's going to be a World Junior player. He's been a Hockey Canada guy all the way up. I imagine he's going to probably be a bottom six center for Canada next year at the World Juniors, and people are going to kind of be able to really recognize who he is as a player. So I really do like this pick from Steen and the Blues, and it's going to be interesting to see where they go from here on out because they got a lot of content coming forward for them.
Yeah. All right. Let's see what the chat has for Tynan Lawrence. A. So, dude, the chat loves you. Chat is loving your grades, loving your picks. This is just the Jack show. So, yeah, I agree with that pick for sure. We are through 11 picks of the 2026 NHL Draft. We're staying here until the 16th pick. Let's look at what we've seen so far and where we've gotten, or how we've gotten to the first 11 picks. So, obviously, Gavin McKenna, Ivar Stenberg, Caleb Malhotra. I think we came in, the two of us, relatively confident that was going to be the top three. The biggest switch up, and someone mentioned it in the chat, the draft started at 4, and the Sabres made that point, drafting Daxon Rudolph at the 4th overall pick. And then it kind of went on with how we predicted it as well. Albert Smith's 5th to the Rangers, most pro-ready defender. Carson Carroll is going to a small town close to home in Manitoba, or close to Manitoba, playing in Alberta. Chase Reed obviously falling, something a lot of people didn't expect. We didn't expect that either. And then Bjork Verhoff and Wyatt Cullen. And we end that off with the 11th overall pick with Tynan Lawrence going to St. Louis. And not just yet. We'll see him obviously at Boston University next year, but I think that's a guy that's going to be a very impactful player for the St. Louis Blues as time comes along here. Now we're waiting, obviously, for the 12th overall pick. The New Jersey Devils are on the clock. This is an interesting pick. I wonder what the Devils have done at this. I haven't heard, as you know, as they fall out of the top 10, you don't hear as much in terms of what this pick is going to be, because so many dominoes have to fall for you to get the guy that you think is going to be there. Now, I do think the draft has gone relatively according to plan for a lot of GMs. I don't think there's been a ton of surprises at this point. So where do you think the Devils are going to go? What direction do you think the Devils are going at this point as we take a look at their best remaining prospects?
I think Ethan Belchetz is going to be this pick here. I don't know if they go with the defenseman, I would take Lynn over Gustafsson. They just traded Nemec, so maybe they go with a defenseman. But they do have guys I'm blanking on the one name. It's the one U.S. National Development guy that's coming up through the system as well. Their defense is still top heavy. If they don't move on from Dougie Hamilton in the next couple of years, maybe it's going to go that way. But I think Belchetz makes sense. It might not be, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Kind of as we mentioned, This is when it gets Alexander Command, 12th overall. So this is a guy that was charging up the draft board near the end of today, near the end of last night as well, over the past week. And we've had Alexander Command as a player comparison. We talked about this a little bit earlier. He's like Anthony Cirelli, like a Alex Wenberg. I will be honest. I don't love this pick because I don't think you draft players in your top 12 that aren't going to be playing in your top 6 probably ever. And that's what this guy is kind of supposed to do at this point. And I don't want to totally like dismiss this kind of pick because I do think it's relatively like a smart pick, smarter in the sense of this should have been a pick a little bit later is more what I'm saying. It's a safe pick. And I don't think the Devils at this point should be safe.
Yeah, that's really a really good way to put it. I think with Command too, a lot of the way you can kind of describe his game is there's not many holes in his game, but there's nothing that's really elite. He's not the best skater. He doesn't have the best shot. He does play a good brand of hockey, and that's what maybe is impressive. I will say, like, Sonny Maeda is obviously a big analytics guy. Maybe he sees something behind the doors with this kid that they really like, but it does feel kind of like a weaker pick for the Devils. He has put up decent points, but the game won't really traject. He did go pointless in his 6 games in the SHL. That doesn't really necessarily mean much. He's not going to really project to be an NHLer for probably a couple of years. The points did come in the U20s for Sweden. It did come in their like international league play, I guess is the way you put it, the way they do it over there. In his age group, he performs pretty well, but nothing's really elite about his game. You're right on the bottom 6 time. I guess maybe if you want to look at the Devils kind of track line, maybe in a couple of years they're going to need that if they still want to command, ironically enough, with Hughes and Hischier down the middle, 1-2, and then you have maybe this guy slide in to pick to line number 3, excuse me. So it's interesting. Everything's kind of average. Nothing is maybe elite. I don't love this pick, but it's hard to say for an 18-year-old coming out of the draft. I don't love it. I think there are better options.
So I will say this one point about the Devils, like it seems like they do to a certain extent have their top 6 like relatively locked in. You know, you have Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, Jesper Bratt, and then the pieces around Timo Meier, the pieces around them to kind of build out that top 6. I think the wingers there can kind of be a little bit all over the place. So if you're planning on this being your third line center in like 3 years, okay, but like, or 2 years, let's say, okay, but I still think that's like almost too forward thinking. Like, unless Alexander Command is going to play this season, I don't see how this pick helps you right away.
No, yeah, I agree completely. I think maybe after pick 10 would probably be my number. You got to start drafting best available and maybe not so much for needs or maybe not so much for what you think is best. Well, maybe if you do think he's the best player available. I don't believe that. I think a lot of people probably don't believe that. But nonetheless, like if Hughes and Hischier are gone over the next few years, I don't believe this is going to be your guy who's going to command the number 1 center position. So yeah, it's an interesting pick for sure, but I guess we'll see going forward what the Devils think of their draft class situation.
All right, let's grade this pick. This is unfortunately going to be my meanest grade. I'm going C- for this pick. That might be brutal. That might be rough in the chat's eyes, but we're here to be honest. We don't have to be nice with every pick. We've been very nice with every other pick. I don't see this being a move that makes the New Jersey Devils any better in what is a extremely competitive Eastern Conference right now.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the C as well. I just think maybe if they were in demand for a center, they probably could have traded back and maybe piled on another draft pick. It doesn't really fit the bill for me for the Devils as well.
All right, and the chat's grade, if just seeing what Emily, C, there we go, right on par with us. Not a fan of this pick. I don't think a lot of people are going to be a fan of this pick from the get-go. I know Jason Bukla, who's one of the scouts that works for Sportsnet, loved this guy, ended up having him in his top 10. I wonder if that's maybe the reason why the Devils got so high on him. You mentioned big analytics team over in New Jersey now with their new GM. And here we have some hot potato takes. New Jersey Devils pick Alexander Command 12th overall in the 2026 NHL Draft. Big dog on the ice. So obviously, hot potato takes, relatively a fan of that. And this is what I think we're gonna see a lot from Devils fans or the hockey community. New Jersey Devils drafted who? Because not a lot of people will know this guy. But again, this prospect pool, not a lot of people will know a lot of the players outside of this top 10, like I think in other years. Like I know we have Hemming coming up and Suvanto, Ryan Lynn, Gustafson's still out there, Ethan Belchitz. But yeah, I think I'm in total agreement, and I can totally see where everyone is coming from with this command pick. So not too surprising to see how people are reacting to that. But we're on to pick 13 for the New York Islanders. Let's take a look at the big board to see what prospects we have left, and then kind of pick from there to see who the New York Islanders we think are going to take. I know we talked about D'Angelo re-signing with the Islanders, and maybe that hinders them from drafting a guy like Malte Gustafsson or Ryan Lynn. Do they go with the Oscar Hemming or the Oliver Suvanto, the few guys that are projected to go in this area? At this point, do you see them taking Belchitz?
I don't. I think they go Suvanto, however you pronounce it. He feels like an Islander. He's kind of this like big body center down the middle of the ice. They kind of have bred those guys over the years. I think this is a guy they've had pinned for a while. I think they want to be in the market for a center as well, which would make sense for Suvanto. Excuse me. Again, like I said at the last pick, if it's a defenseman, I'd go Ryan Lynn over Gustafsson. So I'm going to say Suvanto is my guess.
Okay, I don't think this pick's going to be Ryan Lynn. I think this is going to be. Oh God, now I'm confusing myself. I think this pick is going to be Ethan Belchitz. I do like the Suvanto pick. I see the Suvanto pick almost being similar to like Eklund last year. Obviously not the player style, but the type of pick with them going Eklund and Aitchison kind of like back to back or close to back last season. Darsh, I think, has done a pretty good job as GM thus far. I didn't totally agree with the Braden Shen pick, but maybe this is going to be his replacement. Let's see who the New York Islanders take at Malte Gustafsson. So neither of us were right there. But again, a guy who maybe slid a little bit, a guy who we thought could have ended up maybe at 11, maybe within the top 10. I know that would have been a little bit of a stretch because he would have to beaten out one of those top 5 guys that we talked about. But Malte Gustafsson to the New York Islanders. What do you think about that pick, Jack?
Yeah, I think I do like this pick for the Islanders. Now thinking about it, he does kind of run alongside that mentality of this Ryan Pelech type situation. They're strong two-way defenders. I think what people are going to most be impressed about him is his skating ability for his size. He is 6'4", 6'5", but he skates well. Now he's not going to jump off of you on the score sheet. He did put up good numbers throughout his time in his age group with Sweden. He had 6 points in 5 games at Helenka. At the U18s, he had 5 points in 6 games. In the SHL this year, he did play in 27 games, only 3 points, only 3 assists, no goals. I think you have to understand this is a pick. It's probably a guy who's going to play in the NHL for a long time. The points might not come. The goals definitely won't come. But this is a guy who's going to be a really steady guy on the back end. I've said a lot of Simon Edvinsson. I think there's a little less production for him in terms of what Edvinsson has done up to this point in his career. I liked him a lot with the Blues, just considering the Blues kind of went through that stretch with the Parenkos and the Bortuzos of the world. Joel Edmondson, like those kind of tough players to play against. It fits the bill for the Islanders. They're getting a tough defenseman and a guy who's really physical in his own end.
Yeah, I do really like this pick for the New York Islanders, to be honest. And I think this is Matthew Darsh being like, okay, this guy's fallen too far. Maybe he wasn't on our list, but we're taking the best player available. And it seems also, too, like you mentioned the Edvinsson thing. Sweden has these defensemen come out in every draft. There's one of them in every draft, it feels like. Maybe a lot of them don't necessarily pan out, but I think we're going to see Gustafsson do pan out. And, we do have the comparison close to Simon Edvinsson. I think you can say the same thing about him being compared to Matthias Samuelsson. That big 6'4", 6'5" defenseman who maybe doesn't make the consistent stats like a Dahlin who's putting up 60 to 70, 80 points. But you're going to be a guy who's blocking a few shots a night, who's making sure the puck gets out of the zone, and is also limiting a lot of defenders from getting pucks to the net by just being his physical presence and all as well. So looking obviously at Malte Gustafsson, let's grade this pick. I would say, in my opinion, I'm going to go B. I'm going to go B plus, actually. B plus B plus. I'm going B plus before we check it. I know I said it too quickly. That's my fault. It's a B plus. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. B plus for Gustafsson here. I like what the Islanders did, taking advantage of a guy who maybe fell kind of into their lap, kind of like a similar situation to a couple other guys.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the B plus too. I think also looking at the long-term success of this team, he's going to pair very nicely with Matthew Schaefer in the future. It's kind of a perfect situation for a big, strong defenseman who can maybe hold down the grounds when Schaefer decides to jump up every single play. So it does fit up really well for the Islanders. It makes a lot of sense. I also have Kashan Aitchison, who is similar in that he's kind of a good blend between the two. So their defensive pool, if you want to still include Schaefer, obviously he's only going to be 19 years old next year, is shaping up very nicely.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You look at kind of your chat's grade B, pretty solid. I would agree with that. That was my first initial thought, and then I just switched it to a B plus because I think again Matthew Darsh being advantageous here. You're now building the building blocks of this Islanders team is looking very good, and they still have the veteran kind of presence of, you have the Braden Shens at this point. You also have Bo Horvat, Anders Lee. It seems like he might be moving on from the team at this point, but Anders Lee. And then now you're mixing in Matthew Schaefer, Victor Eklund, Keyshawn Aitchison, Malte Gustafsson. And you look at also some of the defensive defensemen the Islanders have, Pelech and Pulak. Like those guys are kind of their time's running out a little bit. So it's perfect. When they're done, Gustafsson should be coming right into the NHL and helping this Islanders team compete in the Eastern Conference, which is obviously a gauntlet at this point. Okay. The Columbus Blue Jackets, 14th overall. This is where I think Ryan Lynn is going personally. Let's take a look at the big board to see what else we have left. Is this a forward pick for the Columbus Blue Jackets? But I think the biggest topic surrounding the Columbus Blue Jackets at this point, Jack, is that Zach Werenski could potentially be on the move. Pierre LeBrun tweeted out earlier, like probably an hour before the draft, that there's a chance that, or that at least they're listening to offers. So if they're listening to offers, they're going to be looking at what defenseman to replace him.
This is perfect for Ryan Lynn, I think. It makes a lot of sense. Ooh, picks in.
It's Ryan Lynn, you stole my answer. Oscar Hemming. There you go. Okay. Go with the forward here. I don't hate this pick at all. I actually really like Oscar Hemming. I think he was very good throughout, obviously, his time over the last few years. And I think this is a player that also can service as someone potentially replacing Kirill Marchenko, because I also hear he's potentially on the block. What are your thoughts on Oscar Hemming?
I think this is another pick where people might not like it right now, but in a year's time, they might be screaming about it. If anyone remembers, Oscar Hemming got absolutely screwed at the start of this year. He was supposed to come over and play with the Kitchener Rangers. His Finnish team, said no. Then they tried to get, he committed to Boston College. There was some issue with that. And when he could join, he only ended up playing 19 games, 8 points, obviously only the 1 goal, but still an underage player in this draft class playing in the NCAA level. His biggest thing is his size. He's 6'3", 6'4", and he plays to his strengths. He's not a great skater. Eli Hemming played with Barry Colts this year, Dallas first-round pick a couple years ago. He's an excellent skater. His brother, not so much. A little bit more size, though. Hemming plays to his strengths. He plays in front of the net. He's kind of this hard-nosed player. He's tough to play against. He's good in his own end. He's physical. It does sort of fit the bill of the type of players that Columbus has drafted, or at least has employed over the last few years, whether you want to think of the Boone Jenners, the Kirill Marchenkos, like you mentioned. Matthew Olivier obviously came out of nowhere and scored a bunch of points last year. Columbus is trying to get harder to play against. This is a perfect guy who kind of fits into that slot. I think people are going to look from this from a year now. Maybe he's playing on a line with Caleb Malhotra is going to be you, sorry. But nonetheless, this guy's hopefully going to succeed a lot at Boston College next year. I think more games are only going to make this kid better.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point, too, of the style and what this Blue Jackets team, what they're trying to build here. Like, you also look at a guy like Dmitry Voronkov, like a 6'4" forward, power forward who's been able to be so good on a line with Kirill Marchenko, Adam Fantilli, Kent Johnson. They have some of the smaller skill guys. Not saying Fantilli is, but like some of the smaller skill guys, maybe not as big and like weighted on their skates as a guy like Oscar Hammond or Dmitry Voronkov or Kirill Marchenko. And then you look at a guy like Boone Jenner as well, Charlie Coyle as well for the Blue Jackets, who could be returning at this point. I really like what we're seeing from Don Waddell to a certain extent. Someone asked in the chat about Werenski. I think it seems like they're talking to other teams just to see what's out there, because it seems like extension talks have kind of stalled to a certain degree, or they don't think Werenski wants to re-sign in Columbus. So I think they're just exercising their options. Doesn't mean he's going to be out the door tomorrow, but we will see. Oscar Hemming for this for this Columbus Blue Jackets team. What are we grading him is the biggest question here. I'm going to give Oscar Hemming, because I like what we're doing over in Columbus, B+. Again, B+. It's a B+ kind of show today. What are you going with, Larmer?
I'm going to go B, just because I think Ethan Belchetz is better at what Hemming does than Hemming. But I don't hate it. Close. Like I think this guy's similar to Tynan Lawrence, where in a year's time you might be like, oh my God, he fell to pick 14. So I do like this pick from Columbus.
Okay. And I don't know for sure. There, we do have a chat grade B. We're gonna, you know what, chat? I think I'm gonna try to challenge you to not give a B rating on the next one. Let's see if we can get something a little bit more exciting. And I'm not saying that the B ratings aren't exciting, but we just want something a little bit more. That's it. We only have 2 picks left, so I mean, the time is running out. Time is of the essence. Maybe Emily says maybe make a fire pick, and then we could give you an A, and that's totally fair. And now we are back with the St. Louis Blues, picking at 15 and 16. They're gonna have the last 2 picks of our stream here. We have the big board in front of us. Take your pick here, Jack. Out of the guys we see on this list, are both picks gonna be on this list? Is this where we see Liam and Marcus Ruck get taken?
I mean, that would be kind of awesome. I would like that a lot, but I think it's going to be Lynn and Belchetz here. You got your center, go get your defenseman, go get your winger. That's my guess. Although maybe one of the Ruck boys goes now, and they're still available at 20, whatever they have. So maybe. But they already got a center. They already got Lawrence. Maybe they still want to draft centerman in one of the Ruck boys, but my guess is Lynn and Belchetz here.
I think you have to go Belchetz. Like, I think having a player like he was a first overall pick in the OHL draft, right? 3 years ago.
Yep.
Like, I think a guy like that, who obviously has that kind of prospect notoriety, and then I know obviously he struggled with some injury concerns, but Ethan Belchetz, you're looking at a Tom Wilson, and these power forward type players who can score and have a little bit of scoring touch are so important. And then I think Adam Ryan Lynn as well. I think if the Blues come out of the first 16 picks with Tynan Lawrence, Ethan Belchetz, and Ryan Lynn, and you told scouts that's what they were going to do 6 months ago, A++. I gave the Blues an A++ trade when they traded Jordan Kyrou and the Connor McMichael trade. Who knows? Maybe they're just going to continue to make stellar decisions at this point.
Yeah, if I had to guess, I don't know who they would go first. I guess it really doesn't matter who gets picked first between the two, unless they decide to trade it. But I'm going to say Ryan Lynn goes here at 15. It's a perfect defenseman to pair along with what they have already. So I couldn't agree more with the idea of getting these 3 players 6 months ago. Thinking about that, you probably don't believe them. Obviously, Lawrence and Belchetz were both inside the top 10 at one point. Ryan Lynn probably wasn't far out. The defensemen kind of made their move. We've seen how it's played out over the last 8 picks or so. And now here we are. But I still really believe in Ryan Lynn. I know a lot of scouts have also jumped up on him high, or kind of boosting above what maybe his draft position was pre-draft. And then Ethan Belchetz, I think, too, probably didn't think he was going to be here at pick 15 or 16. So I think he's a little bit better than Hemming, like I said, at what Hemming does. As well as maybe Cullen. I think I probably had Belchetz as higher as well. But regardless, we'll see what St. Louis does here. They got an interesting here 2 picks, because last night they probably didn't think they were going to have either of them. Maybe they were going to be had Jason Robertson. So
yeah, Seattle. You keep mixing St. Louis and Seattle up.
Oh, did I say Seattle? Sorry.
Was it St. Louis or Seattle who was in on Jason Robertson? Was it not Seattle?
It was both. I thought both were in on them. Yeah.
Okay.
I think Robertson turned down $15 million, and Robertson turned down $15 million from Seattle. Dallas said no to the picks from Robertson.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, because I mean, St. Louis is obviously the most equipped to make the move with Jason
Yeah.
Robertson. If you're kind of thinking about it like that, it's also really interesting to see where the Blues are at this point, considering where everyone thought they were going to be. Like at the deadline, they were sellers. Like, oh, Colton Parayko to Buffalo. Justin Falk obviously got moved to Detroit. What a great trade for St. Louis at that point, because Justin Falk did nothing, and then Detroit ended up missing the playoffs yet again. I mean, that if I was Dylan Larkin, I would have requested a trade as well. So, Binnington obviously looking to be on the move. I think he still could potentially be on the move at some point here, considering Hofer has. We talked about it all through last year. Hofer cemented himself as the number one goalie, and there it is. We have a trade. We have a trade in the NHL, and I'm assuming it's got to be one of these picks for the St. Louis Blues.
Yeah.
And there it is.
Oh,
the St. Louis Blues have traded the 15th overall pick and the 29th overall pick that they got from Colorado for Mason McTavish. So this changes your plans a little bit in terms of a Rangers fan and just in general. But what are your initial thoughts on this trade? Is this something that you thought was definitely a possibility coming in today?
Yeah, I think that's a lot. I know McTavish is a good player. He's put up 3 straight 40-plus seasons, coming in as a 19-year-old out of the gate. Giving up 2 first-round picks for him is interesting for sure. St. Louis does add another center here, which makes me think that Anaheim I don't know. I guess they just did trade off Zellweger. They do have kind of a slew of defensemen here that are probably going to be moved on, whether it's Gudis or Trouba or who's the other one, John Carlson. So I think this is where probably Ryan Lynn gets taken. But it's interesting to flip 2 first-round picks for Mason McTavish. It feels like a lot, and I'm kind of glad. I know the Rangers probably had Braden Schneider a part of that deal and not picks. But it's interesting to see that Seattle's willing to move off of 2 of these and now only exit with Tynan Lawrence and one other prospect.
Yeah, that is a very good point. I think you bring up. I think Anaheim too. Like Pat Verbeek seems like the kind of guy where he doesn't take no for an answer. Like he's going to get what he wants from you. And if it's a shit trade, like what probably would have been like for Braden Schneider, then no offense to Braden Schneider at all, but I think he obviously wanted a little bit more. And look what happens when you wait and you're resilient. So I think this is an interesting move for the Ducks. I've also read a lot about Roger McQueen being like nowhere near where they thought he would be at this point. I saw their assistant GM talking about how they don't even think he's going to compete for the top 9 next year. So is this Ethan Belchitz? I know that's obviously you're not replacing Mason McTavish or another center 1-for-1, but is it a guy where you add a little bit more power and strength to this Ducks lineup? Because they don't really have it in some of their prospects. Like Leo Carlson's a big body, don't get me wrong. Seneca's obviously pretty tall, but he's not necessarily like super physical. Belchitz would obviously add that element to the Ducks game that maybe they're looking for 100%. So, but I agree. This could, the one interesting thing I think here too, St. Louis, if you're going to keep that 16th overall pick, why wouldn't you just give that one so you get the player you want? What if they take Lynn or, like this has had to be a predetermined trade to a certain degree, don't you? Yeah. Don't you think?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that kind of fits the mold of believing that the next 2 picks are probably Lynn and Belchitz, just because I think they both really fit the mold. Now, in what order is more interesting? St. Louis exits this draft with 2 centermen. I still think Nashville's prior need is defensemen. There's a good chance they lose all 3 guys, whether it's Gudis, Trouba, and John Carlson. And then all of a sudden you're kind of sitting there with Lacombe. Minchikov needs to be re-signed. Like there's not a lot of guys coming up through that system. So I think this is where Ryan Lynn goes. I think it makes the most sense. Obviously we've seen scouts kind of really high on him. The defenseman market is in dire need for the Ducks and to get young as well on their back end, which Ryan Lynn will help out with.
Yeah. And taking a look at the big board as well. I think it's interesting to see. Like this is definitely the hardest pick to predict at this point. Is this Anaheim, reaching? Like, do they go for an Xavier Villeneuve off the board? Not off the board, but maybe off of a lot of teams, top 16 rankings at this point. Like, is this it? Pat Verbeek seems like the kind of player to really shake up a draft and make a statement about it. So I feel like if there is going to be a shakeup at this point within the next 4 picks, I feel like obviously we had the trade with Anaheim, and they're going to get a player they obviously want at this point, and finally get rid of the Mason McTavish story that has been kind of dragged on for quite a bit now, it feels like. And the pick is in here for Anaheim at 15 after making the trade with St. Louis for Mason McTavish. And there it is. This is what I'm telling you. Something out of nowhere. This is Pat Verbeek loves to do this kind of stuff. Nikita Klepov getting taken 15th overall. You seem upset.
Yeah, I just think there's better wingers. There's better wingers available. Now, Klepov's an interesting case. Hockey people aren't dumb enough to sit there and go, well, he led the OHL in points as a rookie. Well, he's not really a rookie. Like, he is, but he isn't. He's rookie by default. He's a draft-eligible player. He's 2 years older than most players in this league. He's another interesting guy. He has an unbelievable shot. He is a bigger body. He's a little bit quicker, I think, than most people kind of view him as when you kind of see him at ice level. The creativity is there. He was good on a really bad Saginaw team. I don't know what that says. I think there's a lot of talent here. I do think he's a little bit overrated. I think a defenseman fits the mold better for Anaheim here as well. He's also playing with Dima Zilkin, who I'm just going to tell you now is going to be a top 10 pick next year in the draft. He's a great player for Saginaw. Igor Barabanov was also on that line. He's probably going to go in the top 50 picks. It was a really high-end Saginaw team, but the team was bad. And if you're really good on a bad team, I think that kind of doesn't necessarily say a whole lot about you. You're playing a lot. You're getting the puck a lot. I don't think it's a bad pick. I feel like there's a lot better needs for the Ducks here. And, Roger McQueen's probably going to end up playing on the wing. They have a lot of wings, whether it's Gauthier or Seneca as well. Chris Kreider is still there. There's all these guys on the wing where Klepov, I don't really know where he slots in as a guy who is going to go to Michigan State next year. And there's probably a chance he might be looking for an NHL contract come the end of March as well. So it's an interesting pick. I don't think I love it. But people probably also shouldn't just look at the numbers with this guy. I think he's a good player. He's creative. He's got a really good shot. He's big. He plays to his strengths, but I don't love it. I didn't have him inside the top 15.
I don't love it because I feel like they could have traded with someone else or traded with another St. Louis pick where they could have gotten him. Really, St. Louis must have known what he was doing. So I'm going to grade this. This is a D+ for me. I think this is too far reactive for Pat Verbeek. Like you said, I know he won OHL Rookie of the Year, but what did I say? D+? Yeah, D+, not B.
D+, yeah. Yeah, I'm going to go with the C here as well. I think it's something else that another good point on this is I know they wanted to move off McTavish. He was making $7 million a year. Maybe they didn't think he was worth that. They don't see him in their long-term plans. But was Klepov a guy you had to trade McTavish to get up to? Like, were they worried about St. Louis picking him? I can't imagine. I mean, maybe, but it feels like we talk a lot about how Pat Verbeek is going to get what he wants, but maybe he didn't here. I think when you also were talking about the trade rumors before with Braden Schneider, it was always the Ducks want somebody that will impact them now. Well, Klepov doesn't impact you now. He probably doesn't even impact you next year. So, C, maybe I'm even giving Pat Verbeek a little bit of credit here, but I don't like the pick at all. I think the kid is talent. Yeah. I think he's able to put the puck in the back of net. That's been shown. But I don't think it makes a lot of sense for the Ducks here.
And chat agrees with you because they're giving Klepov a C here. I don't want to compare it one for one, but I look at a guy like Liam Greentree, who had obviously an unbelievable first year with Windsor when they were bad. They get Belchitz, they got a little bit better, and I'm not going to say his production was bad, but I think that obviously helped his stock in the draft and where he got taken. I think you could say the same thing for a player like him. We have Emily Simon in the chat saying tough day for the Ryan Lynn enthusiast, us, because we are big Ryan Lynn guys. I'm praying he goes before we get off this stream so that we don't look like total idiots. But Ryan Lynn is a great player, and I do absolutely think, as we were talking about before, this could be the pick here. I still think if I'm Alex Steen and I'm looking at this 16th overall pick, I'm like, Ethan Belchitz looks pretty good.
Yeah, it's interesting now, but like I even look at what St. Louis is now done adding McTavish, obviously adding Tynan Lawrence. You add McMichael, who can slot in down the middle, will probably play wing there, but he's played center over the course of his pro career as well. Belchus makes sense, I guess, in terms of adding a big power winger. You kind of just lost that with Jordan Kyrou. But I look back at that Parenko trade, and they wanted to get that Radim Murka, who's a right shot defenseman. You know who else is a right shot defenseman? Ryan Lynn. So Ryan Lynn is my guess here. I think it makes the most sense. This has gotten to the point where, in my opinion, after this pick, if it's not Ryan Lynn, teams are going to start calling maybe to move up in the draft. We're out of the lottery. Obviously, we're into the teams that have made the playoffs, or most has made the playoffs. If not, it's a playoff pick. So it'll be interesting. But my guess is Ryan Lynn.
I would say too, even if you're looking at some of these teams that are drafting after, the pick is in. Please, Ryan Lynn. No.
Whoa. That is a big reach. That's the biggest reach in the draft.
This is a guy that was on the Habs radar at 28.
Yeah.
Tell me about Maddox.
So here's a guy who I like. The potential is high. It's a super high risk play, but to me again, it feels like a reach for a center. I know what Down says there. It says left wing center. He will project as a centerman. The thing most people have to remember is the Quebec League compared to the other junior leagues are a lot easier to play in. It's not as physical as a league. Players tend to put up stupid numbers, and that we've seen that over the course of plenty of years. I mean, Tommy Blyle, who's going to go in this draft, put up 80 points as a rookie defenseman. This guy, I guess he kind of fits the mold of this big centerman that maybe the Blues kind of want to recreate of the Jordan Kyrous of the world. I just think, again, this is a reach at pick 16. This guy, like you said, the Rangers had him pinned at 26, I think, before they obviously traded that pick for Dorofeev. So I don't know. I can't say I love this pick. The skating's really good for his size. His ability to get on the inner half is really good. He's also 6'3", so he should be good at that. I don't see him going out next year and putting up 80 points in the Quebec League. I think he's going to cap out at between 65 to 70. I just don't think he's that skillful of a player. He's big. We know size sometimes help. I guess if it's I guess it's Alex Steen. So I don't know. It's definitely interesting. They now come out of this draft with 3 centermen. And I don't think that makes a load of sense in terms of future plans, but I thought this was Ryan Lynn. So anyways,
yeah,
I don't love it.
Okay. Let's grade this pick. We'll hear from the chat, and then we'll go into, as this was the final 16 picks, we'll go into our biggest winner from the draft from this far. Obviously, we have another half pick, 16 picks to go for the rest of the draft, but they won't be with us. My grade for Maddox Dagenet going here, I don't like the fact that this is potentially 3 centers for the Blues. I think a little bit of change would have been nice. I'm going with a C for this pick.
Yeah, I'm gonna reverse you on what we did last pick. I'm gonna go with the D here. I think this is a big reach.
Yeah.
There's not many centermen left here. I guess the Ruck boys are there, but why try to trade that 29 pick as well when there's a good chance he might have been there at 29? So I don't like this pick. I think there's too many guys left on the board, whether it's Belchetz, whether it's Ryan Lynn, Elton Hermerson. There's plenty of players left here, I think, that could impact the Blues quicker and could impact the Blues more. I don't like this pick at all.
All right. Chat's grade, I'm going to assume, because we saw from Emily, tons of F.
Whoa.
We're ending off the stream with an F grade. Honestly, I love it. I asked for a little bit more of an exciting grade, and I got it. I can't complain. And we don't necessarily disagree with you, considering we thought this was a huge reach. And like you mentioned, they have a pick. They have another pick where they probably could have gotten this guy. So unless they know something we don't, which I don't think so, Jack. I don't think the GMs know more than us, but maybe they do.
Nope.
Okay. Winners so far. I will start, and I'm going to go with the easy one. I apologize. But the San Jose Sharks have to be. And I think to a certain degree, this is almost like obviously a really easy pick because they could have had any defenseman at 9, I think, who would have gotten taken before them, I would have been happy with. The only thing I would have been upset with is if they tried to reach and go after like a Gustafsson, or obviously as Ryan Lynn supporters, we would have liked it, or like a Ryan Lynn. But I'm going to go with the San Jose Sharks. I think what Mike Grier did, getting that 9th overall pick, was so smart to cement that number 2 overall pick for Stenberg, and then getting Keaton Verhoff, that prototypical right shot big defenseman that every team wins Stanley Cups with. You finally have that player as well. What is your biggest winner from the draft, Jack, so far?
I would say the San Jose Sharks too, but just to be different, I'll maybe go with the other easy pick. I'm going to go with the Maple Leafs. I think when you look at where they were a couple months ago before the lottery, and they're kind of on that 5 pick where it's 1 pick away from being the Bruins, and then all of a sudden they jump up and they have the ability to take Gavin McKenna. It's an absolute A++ win for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They're getting a top 6 player who's going to insert. You might see 50, 60 points next year from the guy. So, and I don't think they're done. I don't think they're done yet. I think there's some moves that are going to be coming. Maybe I sound like every insider out there that just says there's fire brewing because GMs do their job. But I'm going to go with the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Where's the Matthew Knies trade? Give me a Matthew Knies trade to really cement the Leafs fandom at this point. But okay, great. Those are our 2 biggest winners. We stayed with you guys for the first 16 picks. I think they went pretty well. I would say other than the last few, the GMs went a little bit rogue, but overall, I think a pretty good experience. What would you rate the draft experience, Jack? Grade it. For everyone.
As a Rangers fan, it's A+. We pick up a ready now defenseman, and we get Pavel Dorofeyev, back-to-back 35+ goal season. So I'm going A+.
Amazing. Okay, thank you guys in the BR Open Ice YouTube chat for hanging out with us all evening long. Enjoy the rest of the NHL draft, and enjoy the NHL season. Upcoming NHL season should be very, very exciting.